Hello and welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for November 18th, 2021. I've asked Commissioner Ryan to lead us in the pledge. Welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for November 18th, 2021. I've asked Commissioner Ryan to lead us in the pledge. That's a heck of an echo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so Commissioner Anderson is absent this evening and he has a work assignment. I haven't heard from Commissioner Kilgore. If he comes, we'll welcome him to the meeting. The first item on the agenda is public input. We have time set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not listed as a public hearing on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone that would like to make public comment this evening? I'll go ahead and close public comment at this time. We'll move on to item number 4, business item, Stepping Stone Academy, Class 3 home occupation located at 991 West Mountain Peak Drive. Ashley Swenson is the applicant. Planner 1, David Rogers, is presenting for the city.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. So the applicant, Ashley Swenson, is requesting the approval to increase the number of students at the currently active Stepping Stones Academy preschool in the basement of her home. The operating hours will be, and currently are, Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. The applicant has proposed a maximum of 10 students, which is an increase from the 8 students the school currently has. And that takes it from a Class 2 home occupation, which is administrative approval, to a Class 3 home occupation where the Planning Commission is the approval body for that. Staff recommends approval based on the findings and conditions in the staff reports based on compliance with city code.
Okay, is the applicant here this evening? Would you like to come up and join us? Please state your name and address for the record. Yes, you can sit down. State your name and address for the record, please.
Ashley Swenson, and my address is 991 West Mountain Peak Drive.
Do you have anything you would like to add to the presentation this evening?
No,
Okay.
just hoping to get 2 more students.
Okay. I will go ahead then and turn this over to the Planning Commission for questions. Any questions? Commissioner McConkey.
Are we approving just the addition of the 2 students, or are we approving a Class 3 home occupation?
So you're approving a Class 3 home occupation, and this becomes a Class 3 by going from 8 students to 10 students at a time.
Okay, so where she's requesting 10 students, are we, if we're approving a Class 3 home occupation, are we approving up to, was it 18? Or what was the number, the maximum number?
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Well, we're not necessarily approving just 10 students, but we're approving the capability of having the maximum allowed in the Class 3. Is that correct?
It says Class 3 home occupation shall not exceed 10 patrons.
Thank you.
Director
I
Stroud.
misread that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you answered it right there.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
But I guess the stipulation is, though, reading further, that you could have up to 40 customers, clients, or deliveries within the same day. So 10 at one time, but you can have up to 40 within a day.
Correct. Yeah, so we're approving the maximum allowed in the Class 3.
Right. By
correct?
approving a Class 3, you would approve anything that is allowed under Class 3.
Thanks.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Has the city received any complaints regarding this home occupation?
I haven't seen any complaints.
I have not received any either.
Since this is an administrative action, I'd just like to ask the applicant, do you agree to comply with all the conditions in the PC staff report?
Yeah.
And also, there are any issues anticipated for the sign permits? It was the only one that was really can't comply and was highlighted.
Staff doesn't see any issues with the sign permit.
Terrific. Okay. Well, and congratulations on running a successful school.
Thank you.
That's it for me.
Thanks, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Ryan.
I just had a quick question for city staff. Is this the resident acting on her own and putting best foot forward to do this? Or is this something that the city regularly takes a look at in terms of home businesses?
As far as the increasing the number?
Yeah, and changing the number and taking this action to come before the commission to do that.
I'd leave it up to David to respond, but I assume that she approached the city and we told her what was required of her.
Or
then.
or if you want to reply as the applicant, that'd be great as well. Just,
So from staff's end, this home occupation was approved as a class 2 last year with the 8 students. And then the applicant reached out to us this year and said that we'd like to increase from 8 to 10.
that's great. My point being that I just appreciate that you're actually going through the official process and with the change. So thanks for doing that.
Sure. Yeah, I wondered if other preschools had done that, but
I don't want to offer my own.
I mean,
I don't think they-
I mean,
I have a good sense.
I'm sure there's some out there that maybe, oh, yeah, we'll bring in a couple more that, you know, most of the times we probably wouldn't know unless someone asks about it.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? I will entertain a motion at this time.
Commissioner Ryan, I move that the planning commission approve the Stepping Stones Academy located at 991 West Mountain Peak Drive with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated November 3rd, 2021.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Kilgore. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passed unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is a business item, Westridge Estates Plat F, preliminary plat located 950 West Evans Lane. Reed Barlow is the applicant. Planning Director David Stroud is presenting.
Commission, on the map you see there, the property in this request is identified in the blue. You may remember this has probably been, I don't know, maybe a couple of years where they came back and actually requested a rezone of this property from ag to R110 and the council granted that. So now we're in the process of subdividing the property. Proposed preliminary plat, as you see here, does contain 15 single-family lots. They will be doing payment in lieu of open space, and that is an agreement they enter into with the city council. Certain requirements do have to be met. They do meet the requirements here based on the number of lots that are above 10,000 square feet, or the percentage of lots that are above 10,000 square feet. There are just a few really ticky-tack minor red lines that we put into the motion should you choose to forward approval of the plat, which you do see here, but staff has looked at it, and with the findings and conditions, we do recommend approval, that you recommend approval to the city council.
Is the applicant here? Would you like to come up and join us? Please state your name and address for the record. Your business address is fine.
I'm Creed Richardson, 1347 West, 800 North in Lehigh.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
No, it's done very well. Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn this over to the Planning Commission for questions and comments. Commissioner Kilgore.
I was wondering, where is the nearest accessible park or open space for the residents here?
Is it going to be on the map there? Either up in Palace Ridge or further to the east out by the schools. The code has several options as far as doing payment in lieu, and they do meet the one where at least 75% of the lots are at least 10,000 square feet. And so by that, they can do payment in lieu.
It is a part about 3 blocks north of there, along Foothill Boulevard.
Is that, it's a public park?
Yeah, that's where they play the, T-ball games and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess there is, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right up there. Yeah. I'd have to look at the map to see if they're
I don't think that- I think I've had
Saratoga
practices
or
there.
community. I'm guessing if they're with the age of Talus Ridge, if they're under 5 acres, I'm guessing they're probably HOA.
And then on page 8, it says there was a finding with the in red highlight increased lot by 1 square feet.
Yeah, it's just one of the minor little ticky tack. There's a lot that's 1 square foot short of the minimum.
Oh,
They can easily change that. It's just, again, there's a few things there. Road names have to be put in, whereas the preliminary plat doesn't show the road name. I mean, really inconsequential
okay.
red lines. That's why you're having it now. It's not a big deal for those to be worked on before it goes to city council, not in substantive changes.
There's no problem with that, with complying with that then.
There's
Yeah.
not.
And then again, and since this is administrative action, is the applicant willing to comply with all the conditions in the staff report? Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments from the commission? I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion. I've moved to forward a positive recommendation to the city council regarding the preliminary plat of West Ridge Estates Plat F at 950 West Evans Lane in the R110 zone with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
I have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll have a second for Commissioner Barton. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Commissioner Barton. Congratulations, passed unanimously. The next item is a business item, Northern Frontier Business Park preliminary plat located approximately Redwood Road and Fall Harvest Drive. JDH developer as applicant, senior planner Gina Grand Prix.
Good evening, commissioners. We have Northern Frontier Business Park preliminary plat. This is a city council, is the land use authority. JDH Development is the applicant on this project. The applicant is here, a representative from the applicant is here. The preliminary plat includes 6 lots. Lot 1 will be a gas station. The rest of it will be office warehouse. It is zoned office warehouse, as you can see in your staff report. This rezone was done, I believe, last year, the beginning of last year, with a development agreement. Other than that, I mean, I missed this page in your staff report, so I apologize, but it just shows some of the easements there on lot 6. This here is the site plan. You can see that Fall Harvest Drive was requested by the city. You can, I can't point that thing, can I? They're to the south, and so they've worked strenuously to get that road in because eventually across the street there will be a school. So there will be a light at that intersection on Redwood Road and Fall Harvest. Other than that, according to the findings and conditions of the staff report, staff recommends approval.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Toby Cordova, 1450 West, 1850 North, Lehigh.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
No. Gina gave a
Okay.
great presentation there.
I will go ahead and turn this over to the commission for questions and comments. Commissioner McConkey.
Just had a question on the public trail access easement, wondering why the plat shows that easement ending at the Central Utah Water Conservancy District property.
Because that they haven't given permission for it to cross over that, I believe is what it is. They're still in negotiations of that. So until that gets figured out, it will end there. So they'll have to go around. Unfortunately, it runs along the canal. There is quite a drop there, but I believe there's fencing around that area because it is a well house.
It's a well house.
It's a well house right there. So the trail wouldn't be able to cross over there. So
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of been a struggle with that. So unfortunately, there are constraints there.
Right, right. Okay. And I think, and this is just a little menial, the word on the plat, the word conservancy is missing an N.
Oh, okay,
Makes any difference?
we'll find it. It still
Oh.
goes, we'll get it fixed before it
That's all the
records.
questions I
I
have.
appreciate that.
Thanks.
Any other, Commissioner Kilgore?
This is just maybe, I think it's just a typo on page 2 under paragraph F, general plan. It says here, the land use map of the general plan designates the subject property as regional commercial, which is described as follows. And then it
Oh, I
gives it-
apologize. That is a typo. It was rezoned and the general plan was updated when they did the rezone to office warehouse.
Okay,
So I apologize about that.
no problem. And
That
then,
dang copy and paste.
okay, yeah, no problem. I figured. And then, any anticipated issues with submitting a fencing plan?
No, no issues there.
Yeah, they will have to fence, well, there is a fence called out on that trail. However, there is like a 16-foot drop from the property down to the trail. And so the topography is going to be fence enough, but there will have to be fencing along that property line, which you'll see at the site plans.
Okay, terrific. And then, again, this is administrative, so any issues complying with the conditions in the staff report? Okay, perfect. I think that's it. Thank you for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments or questions from the commission? I'll go ahead and entertain a motion at this time.
Commissioner Ryan, I move that the planning commission forward a recommendation of approval to the city council regarding the preliminary plat of Northern Frontier Business Park located approximately 2250 North Redwood Road, based on the finding and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Looks like it passed unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next item is a business item for Alpine Springs preliminary plat located 701 West Marie Way. Randy Smith, Fieldstone Homes as applicant, planning director David Stroud's presenting.
So Fieldstone Homes just a few months ago came through the city to rezone the property. That rezone was granted. They went to the R110 zone. The general plan at the time also had medium density residential. The general plan was changed at that time too, to coincide with the zone. And we'll talk a little bit more about that briefly, but property located there on 701 West Marie Way approximately, currently under the ownership of Alpine School District. The applicant intends to close on that property this month. Is it? December, next into Cape, so next month. I'll close on the property. So the zoning is R110. So the applicant is proposing 52 lots of 10,000 square feet plus, and then 11 lots are less than 10,000 square feet. Now, the current zone R110, the standard would be a 10,000 square foot lot with corners being 11,000 square feet. There is a provision in the code which allows lots to have a reduced size if things in the code use the term such as would be significant increase in open space and significant increase in the amenities. The applicant at the rezone time of the rezone, the applicant did come through with the development agreement that's standard with rezones, and then they're tailored to whatever the specific request is. The city wanted no access onto Marie Way. We were having issues or reported issues to the city of traffic congestion with the school across the street. A lot of actually ASC employees parking on the street due to limited parking on site. And so the idea was, well, let's not front homes on Marie Way. The original concept plan that we reviewed with the applicant at the time of the rezone did have lots fronting on Marie Way. So it was contained within the development agreement that there would be no homes to front Marie Way. And so that was then signed and recorded as part of the process. When the time came to review the preliminary plat here, that's now when the thought of having reduced lots has been put into the picture. And so the applicant is going to request through the planning commission and through the city council, and this is something you can make a recommendation on as well, would be to have those various lots totaling 11 as shown on the preliminary plat here, would be less than 10,000 square feet. There is open space on the property. There are trail connections on the property. The applicant is putting in the trail along the canal. There is some open space up on the northwest corner, which will contain a park. There are an opportunity for some offsite improvements to make a connection to the existing trail on the ASD property to the east. There will be a trail connection on the southeast to the, I believe it's the church property, south of there, to a church property, I think goes over to possibly the seminary building or the church property. Anyway, so the plenty of trail connections. There's a mid-block trail connection as well that's required. When we add up all those amenity points, they are still short amenity points and they are still short equivalent acres of open space. Other than that, other than the lot size and the open space and amenities can be handled through and will have to go through an open space or payment in lieu agreement as well. But other than the lot size, which from a staff standpoint, we read the code, we don't think there's any justification for the lot size reduction. But that'll be something you can converse amongst yourselves and make part of your recommendation. And then ultimately up to the city council when they look at the preliminary plat. The dark areas you see here, and you can see it will be the landscaped and the trail areas, just identify where those are at. Based on the table that the applicant has given me so far, which I haven't been able to read thoroughly through with the open space, they need 1.5 acres of equivalent or 1.58 equivalent acres of open space. They're providing 1.04, and then they need 157.5 in amenity points. And right now we're at 88.79. So obviously there's a payment in lieu, regardless of what happens, there's a payment in lieu factor there. And then staff recommends approval with the findings and conditions of the staff report.
Okay. The applicant, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Absolutely. It's Randy Smith. You're going to make me remember my work address. Huh? Pony Express Drive, Suite 400, Draper.
That's good enough.
Okay.
That
I
works.
should know that, right?
Yeah, I know. I probably couldn't do my address for my work.
Yeah. Is this an opportunity for me to?
Did you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I'll just talk for a minute about the project. I think you guys have seen this before. And we initially started this project kind of following the general plan or the master plan, looking at townhomes, medium density townhome products, working with staff that kind of morphed into townhomes and single family detached and mix. And then it was all single family detached. And we ended on this R110. And we did go through that zoning as we talked about, as Dave just talked about, moving into this lower density. Through the process, we did go to city council and had this discussion about the fronting homes on Marie Way. And as Dave mentioned, our concept plan did have homes fronting on there. And so after that development agreement, after that, we had to go back and revise our plan to not front any homes on there. And of course, trying to still build as many homes as we can. We're passionate about building homes. It's what, it's what Fieldstone does. So, and as we look at the code that talks about the 10% reduction, it says that, does the project serve a public or neighborhood purpose? And we think that it does. We think that not fronting the homes on Marie Way is good for the community. We understand that there's traffic and they need some parking on that street, and having driveways there would be difficult. It is good for the community, and we think it feels like a reasonable request to have a reduction on a few of the lots. The code allows up to 25% of the lots. We're asking for 17%. And many of those lots are as big as 9,600 square feet. They're not far off the 10,000, and a person standing on the street, you're looking at them, you would never know. I mean, these are just kind of numbers on paper, right? So the ask feels reasonable, and I'm interested to hear your guys' opinion. We understand that it's just 2 lots. It's 2 additional lots. It would probably cut us down to 61 instead of 63 to go all 10s. And those 2 lots are very important to us. And I think they're very important to Utah. Even just today, KSL had an article, can the missing middle help solve Utah's housing crisis? So we are in a housing crisis. I think you guys probably hear a lot of that, and it's absolutely there. 2 more homes is 2 more families that can get a home. So We're passionate about it. We are very excited about this project. And we feel this is a reasonable request, and we hope that you guys agree and would pass on a recommendation for approval to City Council. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have and talk about the project at all.
Thanks. I'll go ahead and turn this over to the commission for questions and comments. Commissioner Kilgore. We turned you off. Sorry.
Okay, so first of all, again, I always do this with the administrative, is the applicant willing to comply with all the conditions in the planning staff packet?
Yes.
All right, and then, so what, I guess you at length explained your reasons, but I guess I just didn't get it. What is the actual reason for the lot reduction? I mean, I understand what the city had asked for and moving it from that, from the front. So I understand that part of it, but what's the reason for the lot reduction request?
Really, it's just efficiency in the community. And we're trying to create a plan that can build as many homes as our plan when we were fronting Marie Way could do. And we can't even get there. We're still behind that, but we're trying to get as close as we can. And it just felt like a reasonable request that, have a few lots that are just a little bit smaller under, existing code. They're at City Council's discretion, of course, but that's kind of, that's the reason. And on top of that, I feel like by downzoning the property, that's another thing that's a benefit to the community, right? That's what the community wanted, it's what the city wanted. And we've come on board to that. I think these are all community benefits. And I guess we're asking in exchange for that, we want to apply this piece of code that allows us to reduce a few lots so we can basically gain two more in the community.
Okay, thank you for that. And what's also the nearest park again to this?
It's just to the northeast. Well, we're surrounded by schools, first of all, but to the
Right.
northeast, I can forget the name of it. You remember, Dave?
Is it Neptune?
It's,
Is it Neptune?
Neptune's not too far, but then
yeah, Triton Park.
the,
And that's, that comes down
Pocket Park.
to the amenities. And while we're short on amenity space and points, we'll all square that up 100% with fee to help improve that park. In fact, some of the neighbors have talked about and it sent us pictures of, porta potties in the park during soccer games and stuff like that. And hopefully these funds can help improve that park for all these communities surrounding it here.
I just want to make a comment here. So I'm okay with everything, the request, like with the payment in lieu of and just about everything else. I do have an issue with the lot reduction just because I can't justify it based on the code. Yeah, I know it's just a few lots, it's 11 lots, but I just feel like, okay, so if we say, sure, why not? Then what's to stop us from not doing that next time? Just because, and so I'm just, that's where I have a little problem with that, unless I could hear someone else's opinions and then convince me otherwise. So that's my issue. If this were legislative, yeah, definitely, not a problem. But, well, I don't know, definitely, but not a problem. But since it's administrative, I have that issue. We have to have a real justification. And I don't really feel that the justification is there if it's only a matter of 2 lots. I could just see if you just eliminate 1 lot in the upper part and 1 lot in the lower part, then you have no problem at all. And there's no issue with the code. Yeah, it's 2 lots. I understand that's a big deal for a developer, but at the same time, for us, planning commission, we take an oath to, support the code or to enforce the code and so that's a big deal for us. And so unless I have a clear reason why I could justify it based on the current code, just for that one item, I just really have a hard time with it.
thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Other comments? Commissioner McConkey?
I'm curious, I'm just going off of memory, what the discussion that we had about this development accessing off of Marie Way, it seemed to me, correct me if I'm wrong, commissioners, but it seemed to me it had a lot less to do with fronting that road as it did to just increasing the traffic. As far as our discussion, I'm not sure about the discussion with city council. Was that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you should see Commissioner Wagstaff over, he's getting it.
We certainly don't. I think that the use of the land is appropriate as far as single family homes and so forth. I think there was a big safety concern just accessing this development, this subdivision off of Marie Way, especially during the pick up and drop off times.
Yeah, that was one of the issues was, our code talks about how many lots you can access off one access point. There's a inherent public safety issue. Say that access gets blocked, doesn't happen very often. I don't know everyone was ever blocked, but in an emergency, if we got a blocked access, you need a second way out. And the number in our code points to 50. Now, yeah, granted, the general plan said medium density residential. That's the general plan though. City council does not have to rezone a property to medium density just because it's in the general plan as medium density. And so they were not the first people to come in and look at this property to develop, and a lot of them wanted, of course, everyone's townhomes higher density. We point out Prop 6, the issues with density, traffic, obviously another one, the school. We all pointed these things out. And then when Fieldstone came, we went through the same discussion of the issues that are on the property. They chose to go to R110 that currently at that time was zoned ag. And so that's, the extremely, low density. They went from about approval of maybe 15 unit lots on that property to the 63. And so by the rezone and the development agreement, they got, a substantial density increase. And so, just from our perspective, looking at through the code, the lot area reduction was never considered at the rezone process. I wished it would have been. We could have approached that and when it was probably the appropriate time. But I guess that's more off track than we initially started about the access. But the access was for the public safety and issues on Marie Way. One thing with that also, if they would have fronted homes on Marie Way, the city would have required that it actually be widened to the current standard. So all the existing curb, gutter, and sidewalk would have had been ripped out and put in to make a 59-foot right of way along their frontage as well. By not fronting the lots, we were able to keep it at the 56.
As far as the city code goes, just looking at from functionality, I think it calls for something possibly. I'll let Commissioner Wagstaff share about that. But let me finish here with my questions. We're anticipating the widening of Foothill Boulevard there, and I'm curious if we were to recommend an approval, how that would affect. I'm assuming that a traffic light would end up going there. Wondering how that would affect this whole setup.
I'm not sure. I'll have engineering jump in on that. I'm not sure there's a light that's going in there, but in any review on this would have contemplated anything needed, and it's far enough away from where Foothill ultimately will be located that it doesn't affect anything on this property.
So how far is Foothill Boulevard from this development? Isn't it that road right there?
50 feet.
I'd have to measure it.
Yeah.
Because there's a.
So we're right almost.
There is some city property there where the trail will be on. The applicant will actually, should this go through, the applicant will construct the trail on the city property, but do no more improvements beyond the trail. Trail will be required anyway. We came to the agreement of let's do your trail requirement, but put it just the only improvement you'll make on that city property will be the trail.
Okay. And another question related to this is that further west, farthest west intersection in proximity to the current road. What's the distance of that, and what would be the distance after? I'm just looking. I'm having a tough time feeling confident that the whole traffic pattern, you combine the kids coming and going at twice a day at least, and during the busiest time of traffic congestion. I'm just trying to get a picture and some kind of feel good that it's not going to create this huge congestion and safety.
And why that road is curved like that is because it lines up with the access across the Marie Way.
Okay. That makes sense. Oh, we're looking that up. I just want to say that I completely agree with Commissioner Kilgore that there's, and I looked at the layout of these lots, and I think it's completely reasonable that that the applicant should be able to comply with the 10,000 square foot lot sizes. I think even getting a little creative, adjusting them a little bit, I think without losing too much or too many additional lots, I think is completely reasonable.
Jeff, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to answer some of those questions. I was trying to pull up city map on my phone, but I don't think a traffic signal is planned for that location. In answer to your question, Marie Way at the west entrance is about 200 feet from the future east or northbound frontage of the Foothill Boulevard. And so as you can see there, it'll be kind of getting further away from Foothill Boulevard than what it is. Well, it's about the same maybe.
So what we're seeing there with the red area, is that where the frontage is going to be for the
Yes.
corridor area?
Yes, and of course, that's very conceptual, but the other big benefit from this is the trail that they'll be installing along the canal, which will provide pedestrian access for kids. Rather than walking on Foothill, they will be able to walk along that canal trail, which right now is just a gravel path. So that with the sidewalk that they'll be installing in Marie Way, from an engineering perspective, it'll add capacity for pedestrian access to the school, student access.
Okay. I appreciate that. Looking a little farther down the road, say in 20 years from now, are we going to lose any distance from Foothill Boulevard to that intersection?
There's a canal there that's gonna pretty well lock that in.
I believe, Jeff, you can correct me. I don't should be like that. I believe the plan, and you can correct me, Jeff, if I'm wrong, but they're building the frontage and then the actual Mountain View corridor will go through the middle, right? So the roads that they'll build, what we would call Foothill Boulevard will be the frontage road. So that line or border of the red will stay, and then the actual,
I see.
the actual freeway will be in the middle of that alignment.
Mhm, that's correct.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, that helps.
It'll look like 2100 North essentially. And then once the demand is there, they'll build the freeway through the middle of it, which is what they'll do with 2100.
For that. Is it an HOA that will be maintaining the common areas?
Yes, HOA will be required, and the HOA will also maintain the park strip along Marie Way, since the homes themselves won't be fronted, which typically would be maintained by homes that front any particular park strip.
Okay. I think that was all my questions, and I'll again let.
Okay, Commissioner Wagstaff.
Okay, first thing on engineering, if there's not an intersection there when it hits Mountain View corridor, is that gonna dead end Mary Way?
Yeah, the current configuration will be similar to the future, where there'll be a T intersection there.
So there will be an intersection onto Mountain View corridor there?
I believe so. I mean, that the UDOT designs is still just conceptual, and as you can see there, we don't really have much detail, but so I can't say for certain.
Okay, because there has to be an intersection there. If not, all those school buses are going through that neighborhood, all this traffic is going through that other neighborhood on the east. So I don't see any way that UDOT doesn't put one there. So I just want to make sure that that's addressed as far as engineering and everything, because it wouldn't be fair to that neighborhood to have all that traffic going east.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say in the plan, it's showing the connection there. It's going to be up to UDOT. They, I'm sure very well could say, yeah, we don't want one there. But from what they've given us so far, yes, it will be an intersection.
Okay, cool. So I'll start off on a positive. I like the 10,000 square foot lots. Missing middle is huge. We need 10,000 square foot lots. Again, like we talked about last time, it is a huge safety problem for those houses you're building in there. They are not going to have any access for that hour of the day, 45 minutes of the day between when school gets out. You know, that's school my kids went to, and the roads are just shot on both sides, people parking on both sides. You can't get anyone through. So that's my biggest, and it has nothing to do with your subdivision. I understand your constraints on the other three sides that lock you into having to go on to Murray Way. And so I don't have the best solution for it, but it is a huge safety problem for all those houses. No emergency vehicles can get in and out of there. And that's poor design on the school district's part. But I would like to either see that road widened or something different on that road. And then are you piping the canal?
We are.
Okay. I just wanted
Yes.
to make sure you were piping that.
Yeah, the city's asked that we do that, and we're working with ULDC and to get a plan to pipe the canal.
I'm glad that you moved the road over to have a four-way intersection there on the west. That should help have some access because typically cars don't park on the west side of that intersection as often, where your east side is just going to be completely blocked. So they might be able to get in and out on that west side during school, during when school starts and stops.
Is it your feeling we should stripe a fire lane or something on to Murray Way? Like what, maybe that's a question for engineering.
I don't know. I just, that road, people park on both sides and it's not wide enough for people to park on both sides and even get one car up the middle, let alone two. And so a fire lane might be a good option to stop people from, and it might be a good option independent of this subdivision because it's a problem now. It's a safety problem now. Because the fire station's to the north, if they were to try and come down and go into one of those, there's like a little office building there too. They couldn't get in there either. They'd have to go around and come back in. So maybe we look at striping it as a fire lane now too. I don't know, but.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what requirements need to be put in place to red curb, for instance, say red curb the south side. I don't know what the standards are for red curbing.
I don't see any reason why the fire department wouldn't want that because if they don't do that, they're not gonna have any access into there. So maybe that's when we talk to the fire marshal.
I know it was discussed at rezone as one of the possibilities of, perhaps this gets built. We see what happens. I did talk to the ASD at one point to the school. I said, maybe this is a problem that you guys need to address on your site. And they said, yeah, we're looking at trying to find a way to put more parking on site. The word I received was that a lot of the staff actually park there on Murray Way. I don't know if it's because it's closer to the building or the existing parking fills up. I'm not sure on that.
Okay. And then
Ask a question related to that. Is there, I'm just throwing a thought out here or a question, if that's okay. About what's the possibility of widening that road? And potentially even, he's asking for some consideration for having some smaller lots.
The widening would have had to have taken place if lots were fronted on Murray Way. The development agreement now says lots will not front, and that keeps the dimension that it is now. Obviously, if the city tries to widen it, but keep lots where that certainly doesn't help him in his case for what he's trying to achieve.
And I'm just wondering if the applicant decided to pay to widen that section of the street to a width that would offset and solve that problem. If that's something that, and I don't know how I would feel about this, I'm just racking my brain as to what some options
for the lot size reduction.
And then
what you're
does
asking?
qualify potentially for some consideration for some smaller lot sizes, even especially along that
You can certainly make that part of your motion. I mean, the code language is community, paraphrase, community benefits such as, the such as term does kind of leave it open.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
it points to as the examples of the such as are increased open space and increased amenities.
Right. I mean, it would be up to the applicant, in my mind, to go that route and to pursue something like that. And I don't know how anybody else would feel about it. But I'm just not seeing a lot of options in my mind here to be able to solve the safety concerns that we have. And still,
We did have a conversation with Gordon Minor while he was still here, related to that road and the right of way. And he'd indicated, well, the right of way is set, it's the full right of way. The road width is a little smaller than the current city section. When I measured it off our survey, to widen it to the current section would be to add 1 more foot to that road. And then to build, sidewalk and park strip. And in those conversations, something has to give in order to get more road, losing the park strip or losing the landscaping. And we actually have set it up and done some nice landscaping along that, to keep the community looking nice. We want our community to look nice.
sure.
With the HOA
We're just dealing with a safety concern, trying to overcome the issue that exists already. And somehow, if there's some reasonable way that would be acceptable to the city and that would be beneficial still to, to you guys, there's some way to make those,
those come together.
And without compromising, the safety of the kids. Certainly have been well aware of some very unfortunate circumstances on some school properties over the years of some terrible accidents, we just don't want to create or compound that problem.
Right. Yeah, and we did engage and get a traffic study as well to look at what's going on and they acknowledged what the school has going on. And we actually did more additional counts that we don't usually do on a study because of the schools, for them to watch that. And, while they indicated like, hey, your development's not creating this, it is happening in front of you, right? And I agree. I mean, there maybe needs to be a creative way. And I don't know if that's red striping, no parking.
Yeah. I don't know.
Widening
I'm
would have
going
to
to
be
turn the
that-
time back over to Commissioner Wagstaff. So I didn't mean to take so much.
No, you're good. And another problem independent years too is that they don't bus a lot of the kids at the school. So we have to drive our daughter to school, and we live on Redwood Road and we have to drive there. So if they bust all the kids, that would help too. But now you have tons of cars parking there to pick up kids too. And again, that's independent of your project. And then just the last thing is I would like to have seen them be 10,000 square feet if that's what we were zoned for, but that's everything I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagstaff. Any other comments from the commission? So, Commissioner Ryan, go ahead.
Sorry, I was late hitting my button. I just wanted to thank the city and the applicant as well for working together to come up with what we have. This is a difficult situation, made a little bit more challenging by growth of the city. So I just want to recognize that I see the efforting that has been made and I appreciate that for both the city and for the applicant. It's hard to punish the applicant for poor planning on the part of the district, which I think is what essentially has kind of happened with the layout and what's taken place. Where I am not comfortable is I agree with Commissioner Kilgore and McConkey and others that I don't see it's always hard to start drawing the line around things, these squishy terms like a few or a minor exception and just a couple. And I know we have 11 lots here and I appreciate the applicant kind of explaining what it would do, the variation from 63 to 61. For me, that's not a compelling enough reason to jump below that and start making an exception because then we open ourselves as a commission to a crack in the door that can become very wide very quickly. So I would recommend that we don't make that exception if I can make a comment there. So
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. So I just want to understand, we have a MD developers agreement with the developer that they would not put frontage lots along Murray Way, which they've complied with.
Correct.
But there was nothing in the developer's agreement about reducing lot size.
That was never any discussion until the preliminary plat was applied for.
Okay. So we're having to look for the code for a reduction or not reduction. Am I understanding?
If it meets the criteria in the code. If, in your opinion, your view, when you review the code of what the lot reduction, what you can do to grant it, does it meet those two criteria? Again, that does have terms such as, but again, the two examples point to amenities and open spaces mean reasons for granting the reductions.
I'm just wondering in the future, should we look at some code amendments to maybe add increasing the road size? Is it possible?
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a tough one, right? Like, it's hard to write code to cover every situation. You can't, right? You try to, but you can't, because this one is very unique to this property and, with Marie Way and that's where, I mean, we are trying to apply code. We understand that it's, at your discretion, whether you guys want to recommend us for approval or not approval with or without that, reduction. And then in the end, it goes to city council and it's at their discretion. And the code's very clear. It's like, this is discretionary and it's the city council's ultimate discretion.
Right.
But this is one, again, we felt like it was a reasonable request. Being that what's being given and what we are given is very good for this community. We understand there's a problem and it doesn't fully solve the problem. But it helps immensely to not have these homes fronting and having driveways and, people worried about other people parking in front of their houses and things like that. So I understand that it's tough. I appreciate all the deliberation on it.
Thanks. I don't know what else to say other than I'm going to open this up for a motion.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask a question of the applicant? Is a deal breaker for you going from 63 to 61? Does that say, oh, shoot, we got to go back to the drawing board, or is that a pill to swallow and we'll deal with it? Or what is your, and I realize I'm putting you on the spot and you can plead the fifth and not answer here necessarily, but I just wonder general sentiment.
No, we're not going to walk away from the deal over two lots. We'd like to figure it out. Those two lots are important to us. I think they're important to Utah. I think they're important to Saratoga Springs. But you guys know my stance and I really do feel like, 400 square feet is we can see it on paper, but in the real world, it'll never be noticed ever again. So yeah, we appreciate your consideration. We hope that you can kind of see that this is a reasonable request, but
just as a point of clarification, do I just be hesitant to say 61? They'd still have to fully re-engineer everything. They may not be able to get 61. They'll just have to see what they can do. If that's the direction they go, what it actually works out to be.
So could we still make a recommendation for that exception of the dipping below the 10,000 square feet and be able to move it forward for the applicant to?
Yeah, that's part of the motion. And right now, the motion you see on the screen is that the plat complies with the code and complies with the development agreement. You certainly are in the position that, you have to analyze the code and think, well, we don't agree with staff. We think this is okay. And this is going to be our recommendation. That's up to you.
Can I make another comment, please?
Yes, go ahead.
So I hate to be hard-nosed about it, but I understand that there's some maybe interpretation with the code because of the such as phrase, but I think the such as what it's trying to do is showing that we will be okay with the lot reductions as long as it complies with, or as long as it has something to do with safety or improving the welfare, such as, and it gives examples of that. It's not meant to be, such as is not meant to be, it's open to interpretation any way you want. I think it has to do with, improving the welfare of the residents and things like that. And I feel like already the application has it has less than the open space the open space that is usually required. And the applicant is doing by code, asking for a payment in lieu of, so that's not a problem. But as far as the residents go, I just feel like it's already really short on open space. And then really the only reason I mean, there's traffic issues, but that was handled already. That was done. The lot reduction request, I don't think has anything to do with that traffic issue. I think because it's not even the homes that are on that road. It's interior. And so for me, it's just a lot reduction because they want to build more homes. And again, that's your right. But if we're looking at the code, the such as is meant to be for improving the welfare, and with the lack of open space already, and again, I have no problem with that because the applicant's following the code on that. But if you look at it that way, I just feel like there's not a justification for that lot reduction. So I don't think we should interpret such as wide open. I think it's an example of what the intent of the code was. And I just feel like in this particular instance, for that particular issue, it doesn't follow what the code intended.
But that would still be a consideration, like on finding 4 that the city council would have to make the final decision on, right?
Yeah, we're just making we're just making a recommendation.
Yeah, you're independent from the council. You think differently. It's up to you to come up with your recommendation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask for a clarification on the findings from Director Stroud?
Yes.
So number 4 there on the findings, where it says the city council shall approve, is that language saying that we are recommending to the city that they shall approve that reduction? Because I think we would want to say the opposite, that our recommendation is that they do not approve the
Well,
reduction.
if the plat goes through like he's submitted, the council obviously has to be part of their approval. Is that?
So
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
I've been here this whole time. Code wise, I tend to agree. Just to acknowledge our applicant, I have 2, possibly 3 kids that are looking for houses right now, and it is really difficult. And I don't know if that can be a consideration because of the, the zoning and what Commissioner Kilgore was saying, but I feel like, I don't know if it'd really necessarily be for the welfare of our city necessarily, but kind of in my eyes, it is a little bit, because I want my kids to be able to live out here. I want them to be able to find things out here, homes out here, and it is getting harder and harder. And so again, I don't necessarily disagree that I want the bigger lot sizes, but I also agree that it is more housing is needed, and even in our city it is. And I'm trying to keep away my personal, where I do have kids looking for homes compared to what, our zoning and stuff is for. But in the end, I feel like zoning with the 10,000, I don't know if we should make an exception. Like you were saying, like it puts us in a weird spot to make for future requests, that kind of thing. But I do acknowledge that I feel like that is something that is needed everywhere. So.
Yep, the zone change was to a R110, not to smaller lots. I think
Yeah.
if that's what was approved, then that's what we stick to.
See, and I'm leaning towards the city council can make that discretionary decision if they want to.
I guess after we make our motion, this will, whatever it is, for or against, then the city council will ultimately act on it.
They still have the vote.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I do want to add one condition to it, but I'll do it at the end. I move that the planning commission forward a recommendation of approval to the city council regarding the Alpine Springs preliminary plat at 701 West Mary Way in the R110 zone based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. And one additional condition is just to meet with the fire marshal and see if there's anything that can be done to make that safer.
We have a motion, Commissioner Wagstaff. Do we have a second? Okay. I'm going to say that the motion failed due to a lack of a second. I think we gave everybody sufficient time. So now do we have a substitute motion?
I'd like to make a motion to move that the planning commission forward a recommendation of denial to the city council for the Alpine Springs preliminary plat based on the findings that the lot sizes do not comply with the 10,000 square foot requirement as stated in the code, required in the code for that zone. And based on the safety concerns that have been expressed. for access along Marie Way.
We have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second? Okay, so that motion fails. The only other motion we have that we could do is a continuance, right?
Yeah. Well, can we just excise that one piece out?
Which,
So
Can I have
recommend approval, but with the exception of the lot size reduction request.
so recommend approval to meet R110 standards only
Yes.
and no lot size reduction?
Right, but everything
Yeah,
else is.
That's what you put, and
Yeah.
with any of the other, the standard, findings and conditions, but yeah, specific to that, you'd recommend,
Yeah, because I don't think we should hold up the,
recommend approval with no lot size reduction, basically is what your motion would be.
yeah, exactly. Other than that, and then it's up to the city council to decide, but I don't want to keep, I want us to do our job. I don't want us to just always say, well, we could just throw it down the road and then they'll do their job. So I think we should just go ahead and if we're okay with everything else, then I think we should go ahead with this.
So, Mr. Chair, can I say so moved?
Do we have to state the motion though?
Yeah, let's just do a formal
So
motion.
I move the planning commission forward recommendation of approval of the city council regarding the Alpine Springs preliminary plat at 701 West Marie Way in the R110 zone based on the following findings and conditions in the staff report as presented this evening with the additional condition that they not grant the exception for the lot sizes below 10,000 feet.
10,000 square feet. We have a
And I
motion.
actually, well, I don't want to do that.
Do you want to add anything else to that? Conditions about?
I really loved Commissioner Wagstaff idea about meeting with the fire marshal. I'm not sure why the other commissioners felt that one can be seconded. But if I could add that, I would add that. But if it jeopardizes the motion,
Okay.
I don't want to add.
If I could just jump in, probably doesn't be a formal part of the motion. The fire marshal does review these. Certainly, he can still do that, but the fire marshal does go through the review process with the rest of us. There were no comments made by him, but certainly we can still look at issues down the road. And certainly, once everything's built out, I think we really need to assess it as well. But I would personally think you don't have to make that as part of the motion. Up to you, though.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Kilgore. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes and 1 nay. Commissioner McConkey, would you like to express why you voted against that?
My thought is solely safety.
Okay. Congratulations on the positive motion.
Thank you for the discussion and looking forward to getting this project moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item. Okay, so we're going to take a break. This is a good time to take a break at this time. So we'll take a break for about 5 or 10 minutes and then we'll come back at it. Thanks.
I'm gonna click on that left screen, Gina.
I don't love it, but.
Okay, we want to return to the meeting now.
Yeah, no.
Commissioner Wagstaff, sorry. All right, the next item is a public hearing for Beacon Point Village Plan 2 located generally northwest of Ensign Drive and Harold Drive. Ryan Bull as applicant for Suburban Land Reserve Incorporated. Planning Director David Stroud will be presenting for us.
Ready there, Nikki? We good? Okay, click on the left screen though, so I can,
Do we need a minute to?
Nikki, to click on the left screen so no, it won't do this though. Yeah, Commission, this is a request for Village Plan 2 there at Beacon Point. This is on the northwest section of the property. They're just northwest of the temple site. So the applicant is looking at, this is going to be the Beck Ridge project. And you can see the pie chart there. It gives us the acreage, the total units. Now, just to clarify the total units, that's also incorporating how many ADUs they are requesting for approval. So in the lower left there, it's actually 154 units divided up between single family and townhomes, but they're going to add, because they can, and of course we can now with state code, they will permit up to 39 ADUs within Beck Ridge as well. So technically it could bring that up to 139 units. Will we get 39 ADUs there? Most likely not, but the option is there at some point to have the ADUs. Open space will be 1.59 acres. Now in the community plan, the Beck Ridge is not required to have any open space. And so thankfully, and it's good for the neighborhood, the applicant has included a nice sized park here for the residents' use. And the Paseo and the connector trails are the other types of open space from the district area plan that they're utilizing. Basically just a look at the lotting plan. Again, more of a location map here as well with the entire project. Here's then the lotting plan. The lots you see there in purple will be the townhome project access off a common court drive. And then there will be some alley loaded single family homes on the north. And then your more traditional single family public street access to single family lots for the remainder. And of course, you can see the green does indicate where the open space is and any of the connector trails. This would be the park plan. Again, great. They're adding that to Beck Ridge and they're not required to, but I think that's a great amenity to have in the neighborhood to help sell your product and provide the residents a nice amenity for where they live. This is the pedestrian trail plan where all the connections will be made. There will be the trail, the master plan trail out along the future Foothill will be constructed with this phase. The other trails and sidewalks you see based on the color coding, the 5 foot or the 8 foot. There will be a 10-foot trail running through basically the middle along with Sarah Drive, which will connect up to a existing or future planned trail as well down to the park. Staff recommends approval with the findings and conditions. We've worked diligently on this with the applicant and I think they've got a great project here and looking forward to see it come true.
Is the applicant here? Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Ryan Bull, Suburban Land Reserve, 51 South Main Street, Salt Lake City.
Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. We're just excited about Village 1. We had 120 units within Village 1. We're about 50% going vertical within that. We have 4 participating builders and happy about the architecture within the community and excited to move into Village 2. We have more affordable units with the townhomes as well as small, medium and larger lots. So we're excited to push it forward. Appreciate David's time on our application.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it up for the public. If there's anyone that would like to make comments on this. All right, I'm going to go close public comment and I'm going to turn this over to the commission for questions. Commissioner Ryan.
Oh, I didn't touch my button, so it must have been left on, but I just had a quick question. So the units in purple, just visually speaking, the setup would be similar to what's like happening over at the Wander development. Is that the understanding with the shared sort of? circular
Similar as
core?
far as access goes, but these will be townhome units. And
Okay.
so it's defined as for that type of unit, it's not specified in the community plan. Those standards would then be incorporated into the village plan, which is what they've done.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner McConkey and then Commissioner Wagstaff.
Is there any overflow parking for those townhomes?
Yeah, within the townhome clusters, we do have some planned parking for guest parking as well.
The code requires, if I'm quoting, one stall within that area for guest parking.
Sorry, what was that?
The community plan talks about one stall within each of those courts for a guest parking stall.
Okay, so there's one in each cluster. Is that correct? That's what you're
And-
saying?
And out front, it will be a public street as well. So again, there will
Okay.
be,
So they can park on the side of the street.
being a public street, yes.
It'll be wide enough.
Yes. There is no guest parking, and this is a request of the fire marshal of the alley load on the north. Because of the narrowness of the alley there, and the signage will be up to the developer, but there will be no guest parking up on that alley load area.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wagstaff and then Commissioner.
I just want to say thanks for doing the park. I know you lose a couple lots and that as expensive as land is right now, that costs you money and it costs money to build the park. The last two applicants just did pay in lieu, which I know is completely legitimate, but I still love to see the park. I know it doesn't work out the best for your performance sometimes, but I think it's long-term awesome. Just kind of a question going forward with the ADUs where does the ADU unit, is that going to count against density where we're going to start
Yes.
seeing those come in?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to clarify on that, within Village One, we haven't seen, I don't know of any, maybe one or two ADUs. So it's not a very common thing that we've seen within this Beacon Point community. So
Okay. So
we
if
don't
the-
expect a high number of ADUs.
if the builder comes in and they want to have a basement apartment finished, then that'll count against their density from
Yes.
going forward. Cool. That's everything. Thank you.
One thing we probably do need to check, and then the whole ADU and the density number came to me last night when I was looking over this. Based on what state code is now, I don't know if they could actually be restricted to the number what they're proposing. Technically, you may be able to allow ADUs in every single unit there instead of, what was it, 39? Yeah, instead of 39, because that's not an exempt area. So I'll have to look with legal on that we may just have to strike that language out. And just list the total number of townhomes and single family, because I think the door will be open for anybody based on city code and state code to have an ADU.
Okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Kilgore.
This is just a editorial. On page 19, on the right-hand side, it says size of buildings. And, well, actually, it's right in the section size of buildings, right below that is height of buildings. It says there, all single-family buildings shall be no higher than 40 feet as measured per Saratoga Springs Land Development Code. And then if you go to the very next page, page 20, again, if we go to on the left-hand side, near the bottom, size of buildings, height of buildings, all single-family attached buildings shall be no higher than 45 feet as measured per Saratoga Springs Land Development Code. And so it says 40 on the first page, 45 on the second page, and then I thought the code was 35 feet.
I don't have it open. I'm guessing you're looking at what's deemed to be single family. Now, the townhomes, because that's not a specific unit type in the community plan, the village plan can set the standards for the townhomes.
Okay, so I see. So one's because it's single family detached, and then the other is because it's single family attached. And so
Yes,
there's just
yes.
different heights.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know they could set it, but it could be beyond the code. I thought you could set it up, up to, but not beyond, but you could do that.
The village plan for an unnamed or undescribed type unit from the community, based on the community plan language, you can create those standards in the village plan.
Okay. So I guess then my concern is if, let's say that we set a height for 35 feet because of, say, the size of ladders on a fire truck. Then if a village plan just says, okay, we'll do 50, then we just have to say, okay.
There could be, again, the fire marshal reviews these plans, it'd be up to him to say, yeah, that's adequate for our facility, or, he could say, say someone comes into the city with something that's 60 feet, I suspect anything like that would be required to be sprinklered anyway. But if it's a home, say someone wants a home that's 60 feet, not going to happen, but the fire marshal could make standards of that has to be sprinklered because I can't provide adequate fire safety towards that structure.
Okay, all right, okay. And that's it for me.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner McConkey.
One question of clarification then in the village plan. If I'm understanding Commissioner Kilgore's question correctly, if it says maximum of 45 feet, but we feel that 35 feet is more appropriate, is that's something that we can put in the conditions in a recommendation?
I guess you can make a recommendation, but the code is open that they can create their standards for a new product type, which is what they're doing. It's called non-traditional in the community plan. So in anything that's non-traditional, that's not described in the community plan, they can establish those standards. Certainly you can make a recommendation where you don't think that's appropriate. I mean, that's your prerogative to do that as part of your motion.
Okay.
In Wander, don't they have something similar that's higher?
Do you recall, Gina, what Wander height is? What the height in Wander? Maximum height is your.
For the 4-packs and 6-packs, they seem to be pretty high. They're 35. Oh, okay.
And the village plan here is saying it's to the top, to the ridge?
It's based on how we do height, which is actually the midway point between, you're the building guy. I'll probably get my terminology wrong, but basically the bottom of the roof truss to the peak. I'm probably not using the right terminology, but the midway point between that would be where we calculate height to. That's within our definition right now of building height.
So what page was that on, Ken?
On 19 and 20.
On the wrong 19 and 20, I guess.
Not the page number on the page, but sorry, on the.
What page number on that page do you have it there? I'm just wondering what the verbiage in here, if it says to the
Sorry,
total
just-
building height.
Yeah, just moved it. It was a page 10 and 11. So the packet itself, yeah. Or what do you- number on the paper, I guess.
Okay. Question answered. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? I will entertain a motion.
Commissioner Ryan, I move to recommend approval of the Beacon Point Village Plan 2 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated November 12th and as presented this evening.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Barton. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The next item is a public hearing continued from 10/28/2021 for Wander Jordan Promenade Community Plan Major Amendment 2, located approximately Pioneer Crossing to 400 South and Redwood Road to Jordan River, Oakwood Homes, as applicant Senior Planner Gina Grand Prix presenting.
All right, we have a major amendment for Wander for you here tonight. I just want to go through some of the major comments on the Wander community plan with the proposed changes. A lot of it is cleanup, just setbacks, PUEs on their cluster home designs. There are some major items that we'll kind of go through. As I get to them, we'll talk a little bit about them. So one of the first major ones is the master land. Oh, I totally misspelled that. The land use matter plan. Sorry, it's been a long day. Basically, they're moving the area for the school from Village Plan 2 to Village Plan 3, adding commercial areas in Village Plan 2 and adjusting open space in the master land use plan. All of this has already been done in Village 2 as the Village 2 is just recently approved. But coming in to clean up some of those areas as far as where those sites are going to reside. I think one of the biggest things on this was the location of schools and adding more commercial areas, which was intended for Village Plan 2. And also, I believe there was commercial down here by the river, but that was also increased a little bit. They added the private roadway cross section. That's a pretty basic one to allow for gated communities. This one is one that I want to point out that I didn't, so I'll talk about that in a second, but this is the open space plan. So according to the changes that affect the open space plan, they do match with the district plan and for Village Plans 2 and 3. So one of the main changes, and it's on page 30 of this, and we'll get to that here in a second. Village 2, they dropped the open space requirement from 15 to 24%. And increased it in Village 3 to 19 to 25%. Still meeting within the ramifications of the district plan. They changed some of their view corridors to line up so that views from those trail corridors could be, you'll have a direct view of the lake, the river, or the river more than the lakes, just like in our code requires. Monument changes, just changing some of the designs of that as illustrated in the original community plan. They're just changing some of those up. Just give you some ideas of those. This page here, what they've done is they have added a temporary sign page, and that's because their parcels are quite large. The church owns the majority of them, and then they have been selling them off to Oakwood Homes for development. They do meet the requirement for the sign size, and what they've done is they've gone through and sectioned off, not parceled off, but sectioned off every 20 acres, because what our code reads is that for temporary signs, and there's some changes in here, but this is why we have community plans. So regardless of zoning, parcels that are in agricultural use or are vacant or are currently under active development may choose to utilize the following temporary signage in lieu of the temporary signage permitted by zone. And such parcels ranging in size from 1 to 20 acres are permitted cumulative maximum of 64 square feet of total temporary signage per parcel, either in one or multiple signs, and maximum of height 8 feet in height. So, I mean, they don't meet the code on parcels, if that was that's the intent. So this would be something that you would have to decide if you wanted to include in allow them to include this into their community plan. It doesn't meet parcel, but it does meet the 20-acre separation. And we'll talk, Greg here is with Hopewood Homes and he can answer to that a little bit more. Open space fencing, they just changed some of the designs for open space fencing to allow for the railing type fence with the metal fencing. The maximum number of ERUs. So again, we go back to the district plan and what the district plan allows. On this, you can see that Wander has been considered a traditional neighborhood area in the district plan, and the range of dwelling units per acre is anywhere between 5 to 32 dwelling units for every 0.47 to 1 acre. And so the increase that they have asked for is 200 additional dwelling units, but it does still fall within that district plan. And those densities will be added to in regards to townhomes in Village 3. The build out, this just kind of shows that reallocation of where some of those densities are. So one thing that I wanted to point out that I didn't include in the staff report, and I apologize about that, was there is a portion of, and I don't have a slide for it, but I'm going to read to you in one of the points where it talks about clarification, adding clarification to the project open space and parks management plan indicating ownership and maintenance by the city and the HOA. So as I don't know if you remember the trail that we had an issue with in Hot Springs Park. That was one of the things that instigated this. Another thing that the applicant has brought up is in regards to the Jordan Promenade Park in Village 3. So it's all along the river. They're struggling right now with getting the wetlands mitigated there. And so working with the state and Army Corps of Engineers is a difficult process. And so they've asked one of the things at the bottom of page 30, it says portions of the Jordan, this is from the original community plan, portions of the Jordan Promenade waterfront park, which may include partnering with the city to construct a light watercraft, canoe, kayak, stand-up paddleboard, et cetera, put in on the east side of the river will be developed during phase 2 in order to fulfill the 18 to 24% open space range requirement for each phase of the development. They've switched that over to phase 3 as far as the development goes because of the issues that they're facing with the wetlands. However, the city has put in a boat ramp along the Jordan River just north of the Pony Express Bridge or Mount Saratoga Boulevard, or not Mount Saratoga, Saratoga Road Bridge. And so part of that has already been done. And I know the applicant does plan on putting additional boat ramps in as the Jordan River Commission will allow them to. And so we have done some of those improvements already. So again, this goes back to, it's a legislative decision and it would be up to you to decide if that would be allowable. And working with the applicant, there's no doubt that parkway is going to go in and it's going to be a great amenity to the city. So this just shows the different density allocations. They are adding 2 new designs of homes to their cluster homes, single family cluster homes, the American Dream and the Porch Light cluster home design. So you'll see just the different patterns that they're putting in. They're slightly different than what they currently have in phase 1 or Village 1 and Village 2. These will all be in Village 3. So then there's the Porch Light design. And again, I made a typo there. The Porch Light, so you'll see the different 4-plex and 6-plex of the homes, but they're still detached single family homes. With that, with the findings and conditions in the staff report, staff recommends approval or recommends that you recommend approval to the city council. with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Gina. Can the applicant state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Greg Paley, Oakwood Homes, 206 East Winchester Street in Murray.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
Just that it's been great working with staff and we're looking forward to continuing through into Village 2 and Village 3 here.
Okay, thanks. This is a public hearing, so I'll open this up for public comment. Anyone here to make public comment on this item? Please come to the microphone. No public comment. I'll go ahead and close public comment at this time and open this up to the commission for questions and comments. Commissioner Wagstaff.
Can you go to slide 35, please?
Which one?
35?
Oh, 35. This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I'm understanding this right, you're trying to break it up into 20-acre sections so you can put signs on each section.
Correct.
So on Redwood Road right there, you'd have 7 signs on Redwood Road.
Every 20 acres, yes.
Okay.
And they're only 96 square feet is what the code allows, and that's what they're stating in there. So it does, the size of the sign is following the code.
But they're not subdivided into 20-acre parcels. It's
No.
one parcel.
Right. Because because the property is owned by SLR.
Yeah.
And so they are developing as they're developing. So
I just don't see any reason to make that exception for that if they're not different parcels. And I just don't see any reason to have 7 signs on Redwood Road in that section. So that was the only thing that really jumped out at me is making an exception when they're not different parcels.
And Dave may be able to answer to this if I'm incorrect. So Village 2, which is 10, 9, and 7, 8, 9, and 10, has already submitted applications for development. So those they are going to be broken up into lots. And so I don't know if that will necessarily happen. Dave, do you have an opinion on that? I mean,
As far as how it's carved out?
So with Village 2, 7, 8, 9, and 10 have already 7 and 8 and probably 9 have submitted preliminary and final plats for those developments at preliminary plat F1 and FH1. So they are being subdivided currently under a current application into lots. So this wouldn't necessarily apply to property that's already been developed and parceled off.
Yeah, basically what they're asking for here is to do temporary signs just based on every 20 acres, we get a temporary sign. This is not how the code's written. The code's written on basically, and I'm looking it up right here, based on the parcel size for temporary signs. And so what they're asking for, the number of signs you see that potentially could be on what you see on the screen here wouldn't come close to what would be allowed on Title 19.
Right. And the way that I read this, and that's how I understand it. However, under parcels that are, this exception is parcels that are in an agricultural use, are vacant, or are currently under active development. So as they stand right now, they're currently under active development, but once they are finalized, I believe they can still, they won't be allowed to post those signs, if I'm understanding that correctly.
And certainly it looks like I'm going to use a glut of signs. I don't know if that's the right word, but certainly we haven't had any kind of requests like this in any other project.
Did you have anything else, Commissioner Wagstaff?
No, that's all.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Oh, and what are the temporary signs for?
Temporary signs would be for advertising for the community and also directionals as well. So I'd like to point out that not all the signs, although the way it's parceled out here, it does show that potentially all the signs could be on Redwood. It's a rather large community, top to bottom, or north to south. And our sales office is down in Area 1 down there, and Area 1 indicated on the map. And we hear a lot of times that folks have kind of trouble finding it. whether they're coming in from Pioneer or coming down and they don't know that they can come down Riverside. So this would help alleviate that problem for us and direct traffic to our sales center. So it's not meant to be one after another necessarily on Redwood. So we ask for your consideration there.
Okay.
So just my thought, if it's not meant to be one after like a, the old, I had to bring up like the old Burma shave. If you remember some historical photos of Burma shave, it's not what we want, perhaps you just give them a, looking at this, I probably think, something more fair would be just a specific number of temporary signs. Certainly if it's approved like this, then you could have, 10 signs. Or 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 3. So multiple temporary signs along Redwood Road, which is that what we want? Certainly, you go to any other, say, a commercial business, it doesn't take you 10 signs to get there. I see wander signs on I-15. I see wander signs on maybe some even on Pioneer, how I drive, and it tells me where to go. Of course, I do know where it is because I work in the city, but I don't think personally that this number of temporary signs is needed.
Right.
Personally.
Yeah, and I guess my reading, I agree with Commissioner Wagstaff, but at the same time, my reading on it based on what you had said is that this actually isn't an exception. It's just the way we read the code, whether we read it as 20 acres or number of parcels.
It's not necessarily an exception from it, but it is a community plan. Dave can answer better than I can on that as far as it being a community plan that you're applying this to.
Right.
Still should, follow Title 19 as close as possible.
But it's also a legislative decision as
It
well.
is,
So
absolutely.
we could interpret it. So I probably am leaning more towards what Commissioner
Right.
Wagstaff was saying. Since it is a matter of a little bit of interpretation as to what the code says.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the code works for you, sometimes it doesn't. So from my perspective, I wouldn't want to have all those signs either, but at the same time, if the code allows it, then I could see that. But again, because it's legislative, I think it
The
goes with what I
word, yeah.
prefer,
Right.
Yeah, and I actually have no other comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Wagstaff.
Just aren't there already at least 5 signs in that section on Redwood Road, including the monument on the corner?
I don't have a count for you.
Okay, I'm pretty sure there are at least that many. So.
All right. Any other comments from the commission? If not, I will make my final comments. One of the first years I was on the commission, we were doing legacy farms. And they had made a similar request for additional signage. And I remember the comment that was made by one of the commissioners at the time, we're selling homes in Saratoga Springs. If we weren't selling homes in Saratoga Springs, I could see why we would need more signs. So I can kind of see from a advertising perspective, I don't think we need them. Maybe from a directional, we might need them. But if we already have a number along Redwood Road, I'm going to lean towards, no, I don't think we need that many signs for this or for anything. And I will go ahead and open this up for a motion.
Here. There's no motion thing in the packet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, she'll put it up on the screen here.
Okay. It just says recommendations.
Oh,
Yeah. So
I apologize.
we're kind of lost for words.
Go back
Staff,
to,
where's the staff? What did the staff recommendation say?
oh, I don't have the agenda. Oh, here it is. Yeah. You can use the agenda
Okay.
title.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be, I would recommend or deny the community plan major amendment 2 based on the findings and conditions of the staff report with whatever additions you wanted to add.
Okay, so I move that we recommend approval of the Wander Community Plan Major Amendment 2 with the conditions and findings in the staff report, also with the additional condition that we do not include the temporary sign section. in
You
the
recommend
community plan.
denial of the.
Denial of the community section, denial of the temporary sign section in the community plan amendment.
And that it follow, you could probably say that it follow Title 19 for temporary signs,
And to follow Title 19 as guidance
for temporary signs.
for temporary
yes.
signs.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Commissioner McConkey. Any question on the motion?
Nikki has a question.
Nikki,
Is that a motion to deny or a motion to recommend approval with the one denial?
Yeah, I want to recommend approval of the community plan amendment, except for that one part.
And then to
Is
follow
that-
Title
Except to
19,
comply with Title 19.
Yeah.
Comply with Title 19, yeah.
Title 19 code for temporary signs.
does that make, do
Do we
we
need
got
to
that?
restate that?
Yeah.
Temporary signs.
That's-
And that's page-
Yes.
oh, that's
Do I
page
need to restate it?
Are you good, Nick? You're needing to restate.
You got it? Okay.
Is the second okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I need this. All right, so public hearing continued from 10/28/2021. Timpanogos Logistics Center General Plan Amendment from regional commercial to office warehouse and rezone from regional commercial to office warehouse located approximately 2100 North Redwood Road. Reed Hart is the applicant, Planning Director David Stroud.
Okay, this is continued. Now you guys come up front. Continued from the previous planning commission meeting. It was continued due to the variance hearing which we had today. I have given you a direction from the hearings examiner of what occurred today. The hearings examiner has continued the request. He felt he could not grant a use variance because the variance would affect the regional commercial property when their use was a office warehouse, light industrial type use. And so you've got that paper before you now. Have you seen a copy of that yet?
No, sir.
And this just came to us late. He rushed to get it done today. So I've got another one over there, Nikki.
Thank you.
You know, we were all present at the meeting today. And so he's continued that in light of wanting to get the results of ultimately the city council request on the general plan amendment and rezone. So just to go over it again quickly, the property in question right now is on office warehouse and regional commercial, which coincides with the general plan. This was changed about 3 years ago or so to the current designation. So it's general plan, this is the zone. The property outlined in blue is what is the subject of this request. Of course, the property that's zoned regional commercial. Would like to take that to the office warehouse zone to construct a 300,000 square foot facility. As you see with the concept plan on the screen here. Again, nothing has changed from what we presented to you last time. Staff recommends denial of the request based on what you have in your staff report. And again, nothing new to what the applicants heard last time or received last time in the staff report. But the result of today was the continuation of the variance hearing.
Could the applicant please state their name for the record?
Good evening. My name's Reed Hart. I'm with Arvo Design Build. My address is 155 North 400 West, Salt Lake City.
Would you like to add anything to the presentation? I didn't cut you off, Dave, did I? I didn't cut you off from your presentation. Okay. Would you like to add anything?
Sure.
Okay.
So pretty much to echo what David had said, we are seeking the RC zone change to OW to create entirely OW. This very same application came before you on the 25th. The staff report is slightly different from what you've seen on the 25th. And we would be happy to fill in any blanks with the new information that's come up. I would offer you, we do have an updated project concept. It has slightly more amenities than the one that was presented.
Yeah, go ahead. You can come up.
I do. I didn't. I thought it was going to be in the presentation. So the fundamental idea of kind of this new information in the staff report is regarding compatible uses. And it, is office warehouse compatible for the neighboring residential and the RC zones? And there's some information presented to you about traffic. There's some information that speculates whether this is an appropriate use for next to a school. We've been in conversations with the neighbors multiple times. We have enormous feedback from the neighbors, and I kind of want to take you back to why this is what it is now, right? So this was originally agricultural land about 3 years ago. This got rezoned to this, and the developers who were doing that, but wasn't us, came in and they said, we want to build commercial on the whole thing. And well, the commercial zone has a higher building height and it will obstruct the residents' views of the mountains. So we took that heavily into consideration when we were designing the site, and we're proposing to build such a large building and recess it into the site so that the residents' views are not obstructed of the Wasatch Mountains. That's very important to us. The community is important to us. Job creation is important to us. And the important thing to understand about warehouses, and I had the context, Argo Design Build builds more warehouses than any other contractor in the entire United States. I'm coming to you from a place of fact. Warehouses generate the least traffic. They have the least demand on sewer utilities, least demand on water utilities, make the least noise, make the least smells, and are generally job creators and good neighbors. I can't find a reason based on substance that this is not a compatible use and suitable for bringing benefit to the community. I would point out also that OW zoning is located directly across the street from this in its entirety, fronting Redwood Road. And that is the only other place in Saratoga where you will find OW zoning. So to say that this location is, inappropriate is, well, first of all, it was contemplated by city council originally that the whole thing should be OW. That's just not what the original developer was motioning for. And then it's right across the street. There's a few other notes here I want to point out. We have a very similar situation on a development we're doing in Draper right now. Same size building, same type of use of building, adjacent to residential, shares an access with the school. There's some kind of conflicting information in the staff report about how impactful this would be to traffic. That report in Draper found 160 trips per day, whereas staff report indicates anywhere between 400 and 1,000. That the only difference on that situation was that was the primary entrance to that school. This is a secondary entrance to what Alpine has planned. We know this because we've been in conversations with Alpine. We're a day away from a fully executed access agreement with Alpine. They're hugely in favor of the project. The point being though, that road achieved an AB rating, which is above the standard for what you would expect to see on a public road. Reed, you want to jump in here and anything?
No, I wait and see what questions we have.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the mic to the public. Please remember to keep your comments to about 3 minutes, no repeat comments. And state your name and address. So anyone here for comment, the mic is yours.
Shelley Barch, 313 West Strawberry Place. I'm curious as to the results of the engineering. I know there was some concern and some question about the wall being underneath the canal. I hadn't heard the results of that. Do we have that information?
Of the hearing today?
Of the engineering, what they thought about putting a canal above a wall like that.
Hands Down Loose did submit a letter. They do have concerns, but they said, some of those concerns can be mitigated though, obviously by piping the canal. And so they did give some standards. If it is done, this is what they like to see.
Okay. Continued talking with neighbors in the area, there's obviously concern of, it has to be an absolute no-go if there is not a wall to mitigate the, I'm going to say the sound, the trucks and everything else from that area. Dropping that would make that a little bit more preferable. Also, the other concern is as more research was done on the size of the building, it's much larger than I would say most of us probably realized. And I don't know, I'm sure you guys have probably done this, but just in kind of going and measuring what the equivalent would be, it is just over 3/4 of the entire NSA stretch. And it is 1.5 times the facility that's just on the other side of Mountain View Corridor 2100 North, over there in Lehigh. And it has no breaks in the building. So it is a much larger facility than I think most people probably realized. And there's been a lot of concern actually brought up about that now amongst the neighbors, realizing how big it really is. The major concerns that go along with that were the amount of traffic, what we understood from most neighborhood meetings is that this was going to be, I'm going to say, smaller uses. And the potential for this building is that you could have, I guess what they call last mile warehousing for major retailers and things like that, which could mean much more truck traffic. So there are major concerns with the neighborhood. And I know that there were some variances requested and that's kind of been continued. But I would say that the support is probably not as high as it was before. So, thanks.
Thank you. Would you guys like to respond?
Yeah, I'd love to address that. This is a super common misconception about this product type. Warehouse uses have a lower occupancy count per square foot, meaning there are less people that it takes to run a warehouse than another type of building. That subsequent effect on traffic, whether there are heavy trucks or not, is you look at uses like office would be roughly 200% of the trip counts per day for vehicles on Redwood Road in the streets, in the shared access road. You look at a retail use would be 300% of that. So actually a warehouse use is amongst the lowest traffic impact of all of the uses that could possibly go here.
All right, I will go ahead and open this to the commission. Oh, go ahead. Make sure you state your name for the record.
Kate Cunningham, 4133 South Colt Court, Salt Lake City, Utah. I am a part of the developer group, but I'd like to make a few comments. In regards to the previous public comment, noise is mitigated because we've recessed the building into the site. As you can see from some of the elevations, it really contains a lot of that noise there in the courtyard. We can pass that elevation concern around.
Okay.
And one other point I'd like to make is if we can go back to the red and blue zone there with the RC and the OW zone. We've been working on this project for 10 months and we worked on several different iterations. I had several different LOIs with convenience stores, with car washes, with gym facilities, with burger shops, everything that you would love to see in an RC zone. I'm a commercial developer myself. I focus on retail and we hit this and we hit this and we hit this. So we met with the mayor, we met with neighbors and we met with plenty of tenants and we worked with UDOT on both of their corridor agreements with Saratoga and with Lehigh. And we hit the pavement and we worked with the neighbor to the north. And ultimately it came down to LOIs. Yeah, we want a lighted intersection or else we don't think this is a feasible spot for us. Okay, so now the owner to the north has restricted any access for us to come in off the north side. So that leaves us with one access point and a temporary access point from UDOT in the middle of the site. Okay, one of the access points on the southern end, which is about 1500 north, is on the south end, which we'll share with the school district. This does not meet the standard criteria to put in a light from UDOT with the traffic, with the trips that this would generate. And so there would not be a light there. So to say, okay, yeah, well, let's put convenience store, they would most likely want to go on the south side, but then you can't sell alcohol next to a school within a certain amount of perimeters. So we've pounded the pavement on retail. We've pounded the pavement on the RC zone, and it is unfeasible. Realistically, it's unfeasible for our development. That's what I would love to see. That's what I specialize in. So we've moved on and we've come up with the highest and best use for the site. And per our elevations and working with the top warehouse producer in the United States, we look at elevation. How does that look? How does the front look? How does the park look with the water features? And how do we mitigate a lot of these issues that we've heard from the neighbors? Yes, it's big, but breaking it up in two different buildings and having a 10 or a 15, 20 foot, driveway in the middle isn't going to minimize the buildable space for the site. And so we really want to focus on just letting you guys know we've done a lot on this site. We've worked a lot of hours, a lot of months on getting the best product here and the highest and best use for the site. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I closed public comment. I don't think I did after. Oh, okay. We got one more. Okay, come on.
Brian Dixon, 115 North Fox Hill Road, North Salt Lake, also with the development group. And kind of a segue from Cade's comments about trying to develop retail here. I came in, I am a, more of a big box warehouse fulfillment type developer doing the Draper project that Reed mentioned earlier. And so that's kind of when I came into the project is at the highest and best use here. So first thing, I'd like to address the public comment that was made that I think we can all relate to about being, close to noise and traffic and all of those things. Granting this zone change is exactly what allows us to mitigate those concerns. By making the entire site OW, we can locate the building in the middle of the site versus up at the top of the site. If it had to be up at the top of the site, now views are a problem. We're obstructing the views of the neighbors, much more direct access to sound and other issues with the trucks. So by making it entirely OW, we can now move the building down. We can make a recessed truck court and we can address those concerns about visibility, sound, and those items. In terms of the size of the building, again, the size of the building is what allows us to achieve the efficiency that's required to mitigate traffic, lower traffic trip counts, lower density of people on the site. It also allows us to achieve the economic considerations that will attract the right kind of tenants to this building. One thing that happens if you do smaller, shallower buildings is they attract, bouncy houses and gyms and things like that, can be a great use for the right area, but not the right use for this site. Conversely to Cade's experience where retailers kept shutting him down, we have the opposite effect. I have very high profile warehouse fulfillment users who are chomping at the bit to be in this building. We're talking to Tesla, Purple Mattress, Frito-Lay, others who will bring great jobs to the community and provide uses that make a lot of sense for this location. But it's the size of the building and the efficiencies that we obtain by having it entirely OW that allow us to achieve that. And so that's really the impetus behind asking for this request is, the history that Cade explained about unsuccessful retail development, the opportunity here for successful warehouse development, and how that actually mitigates a lot of the concerns that the neighbors, that the community, that even staff have expressed about density, traffic count, use of utilities, and so forth. So just wanted to kind of highlight the impetus there and close my comments with that, but thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Go ahead.
My name is Reed Quinn. Run a distribution company in our port at South. My brother Christopher and I have been involved in this project. Last time we came up. And our intention was always initially to work with the development. That's why we engaged with Cade. It's been a close friend for years and really has a lot of experience with regional commercial development
And the original plan was for us to develop an owner occupied warehouse on the back half of this property and to let to make that work, share access. And the more that we got down the road with this property, the more we realized how really key down to access. And the access has kind of two major components. One is the site is very steeply sloped. To get up to the back of the site requires steep grades, requires quite a bit of engineering. The other was that the access is shared with ourselves and the Alpine School District entirely on this property, and the access to the north is entirely on the property of the north. And for many months we wrote access to the work with the developer, and they're just not. That's not something that they're interested in. Grants they have an ancestral home on there. We offer to pay for the lighted intersection. We offer to pay for the road. We offer to put in gates to restrict access. We work with Alpine School District who needs some fill. We have a lot of fill on the site, so that we give them access on our road. We pipe the canal, which would allow the homeowners who also have a piece of that property, the homeowners association, to get access to the school, which is coming in much sooner. If we finish this project in the next year and a half or 2 years, it would just be a year or two after that the Alpine School District would be looking to develop and would want access from the neighborhoods there. They were in favor of the project, but as we dealt with trying to work within the existing zone, just ran problem after problem, hearing problems. The developer to the west of this that put in the residential needed sewer and ran the sewer through the middle of the property. Unfortunately, that was placed not under where a road would kind of split the commercial, but firmly on the development regional commercial part of the property, which meant that any regional commercial buildings would be over. That needs to be moved. Where we're moving the sewer, where we're looking to work with UDOT to get access to more, but it wasn't lighted. Right in, right out. As we were trying to figure out how to access the back part of the property that is office warehouse, as we're trying to fit in that narrow office warehouse section, a building that would be long and skinny and right in the residents' faces. We thought, this is just too many obstacles to overcome. There's all these uses that are listed for office warehouse and regional commercial. And we just checked off one after another that was not feasible given the topography, given the constraints with the access. And so kind of the saving grace was teaming up with Ryan and saying, what we really are interested in, a self-occupied warehouse, what would allow us to drop this building down to best utilization for it, probably to we went back to the notes, we talked to the city. Within 2 weeks of putting this under contract about 10 months ago, we were talking with the mayor, we were talking with the economic developer. We work closely with the city. We look forward to working through some of these other issues, whether it's variances or code changes or, figuring out how to make this work as we go forward. But we're pretty convinced after, hundreds and hundreds of hours on this project and traffic studies and engineering and access agreements and agreements with Alpine School District, Canal Company, and talking to the homeowners that this is a really appropriate project. And as we refer to the notes of previous council meetings, it was contemplated and some of those ended up being a little bit very close to ending up all office warehouse last time, just because of the height. So that's my comment.
All right, thank you. I'm going to, if there's no other public comment, I'm going to close public comment at this time and open this to the Planning Commission and Commissioner Wagstaff. Go ahead.
So I want to start off with the positive note. I would love to see that canal piped and I would love to see a trail there. I do understand the limitations to develop this, especially commercial without a light. Access onto Redwood Road is terrible without a light. And I don't feel safety-wise a lot better about any semis or anything coming in and out of that project on Redwood Road without a light, especially considering that they would be going left to 2100 North to get to I-15, or their other option would be to go right and go all the way through the city to either Lehigh Main Street, which is a terrible option, or Pioneer Crossing. And so just the safety thought of semis turning left out of there is definitely concerning. I would also like to see the report from Hanson Allen Luce, the engineer for the canal, as far as the safety of piping that and that retaining wall. You showed two 30-foot retaining walls, which are variances, to my understanding, right?
Yes, sir.
They're both variances.
Well, yeah, a single 32-foot wall.
Yeah. And so there's a 32-foot and then a 30-foot, right?
No, there's not two walls, just one.
There was one that's shown on the thing that they just passed on the Redwood Road. How high?
Oh, on that, I'm sorry, I didn't take a
You
look
guys
at that.
have two retaining walls, right? One's
Yes,
30
sir.
feet.
In the front and the back.
Yeah, the one on the front is 28.
It
Okay.
varies slightly, but
But yeah,
close.
two 30-foot
Yeah.
retaining walls. So that is, I mean, having the 30-foot retaining wall right next to that canal is also a little bit concerning. Have you guys looked at staging that? So maybe you had a 10-foot and then a little bit of break and then another 10-foot?
So the limitation per the ordinance is if you are to have a series of retaining walls, they then become limited to 6 feet each and you can have no more than 3,
Okay, so
effectively
that
limiting
won't
you
work
to a
either.
total of 18 feet. So what we're proposing is a single wall,
Single
but
30-foot.
terracing it or stepping it or sloping it is probably in part of that equation. We're not to that point in the engineering.
Okay.
And I think that, from our conversation with the examiner today, they need to first see that it's rezoned because any variance that they granted would be specific to the use. And it would be the minimum required. So if that requires, 2 18-foot walls or something like that, there's, that's a decision for, once we decide that this is a good use and it can be rezoned. Then the examiner will look at that with the code and, address that particular issue of, how many walls, how far offset and what's allowed.
And more importantly, a licensed professional engineer who say to you, Josh, is going to make a judgment on that. We're not just, going out here and saying, oh, let's go throw up a 35-foot. We're going to put engineering behind it. The example I pointed to earlier today, I mean, there's concerns of, canals flood and so, bridges fail, but bridges fail when they're not properly maintained, when they're not engineered properly, or not constructed properly. Generally, bridges that are built that are engineered properly, maintained properly, and constructed properly do not fail. So it's the same kind of scenario. A piped canal greatly mitigates risk in a retaining wall situation is the long and short answer to the question, which we intend to do.
Right. Now, just the 3 variances obviously make me a little nervous too. I mean, you've been here through the whole meeting. You've seen we wouldn't allow a variance for 9,600 square foot lot when it was zoned for 10,000. We wouldn't allow the sign variance, like anything, but the other applicants, everything passed just fine because they were in compliance. So having 3 variances on there, plus the safety is kind of my concerns.
If I may, there are 3 variants on there, but the variances that matters is variance number 2, which is you can't excavate or fill on a site more than 6 feet. On this particular site, there's a 15% slope across the entire site. So, I mean, simple trigonometry, rise over run is slope, right? 15%, that's going to limit your building depth to be 40 feet. Think about how big this room is right now. What of those uses could you fit in a 40-foot deep building? Not much. That variance is absolutely necessary to develop anything other than a public park on this piece of land. And the other 2 variances are to support that.
Related. Yeah, no, I get it.
We would certainly be supportive of approval contingent upon receiving those variances. We don't get the variances. Certainly understand if you move to approve with that contingency, that makes all the sense.
Okay, that's everything with me.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Wagstaff. Commissioner Kilgore and then Commissioner McConkey.
I wanted to ask something on the findings, number 3. Said here, the general plan, land use map amendment and rezone will not result in a decrease in public health, safety and welfare. But then a couple pages before that, it did say that there was a non-compliance in that it would reduce the health and safety. Is that a
Typo, yeah.
typo? Okay. Okay, so I guess, I mean, because this is legislative and not administrative, but just my own comments is, well, actually, I'd like to ask you, you said that you built, many of these kinds of office warehouse type of things in other cities and elsewhere. And so usually in a city, where do you place them? These kinds of, this kind of a size structure within a city? You place it like downtown or in the middle of the city, or is it further out, or how does it?
You
Is
would
there a-
not typically put a large warehouse building downtown. It would be kind of on the edges of similar to those.
Okay. Yeah, and so that's what I thought as well, just based on just layperson, driving around. And for us as a resident here, Redwood Road is basically our state street. And so it's kind of like, I mean, it's a little bit further north, and it's not exactly what we would consider downtown, especially since the commercial center is moving more and more south compared to, like this location where we thought it was going to be downtown. So I get that, but still for us, it's still State Street, and it's like the main corridor. And so I just feel like, although I do and all the analysis that and all the things that you've been through, everything you said, I get it's a difficult spot. But as far as the size of the building and the, just the monumental megalithic type of building, or monolithic type of building, I just feel like that's not what I want to see on my State Street, on my down, very just within just a mile or so from downtown, basically what our downtown may be in the next 20 years. And I just, I don't know, it just feels like, it's got to be broken up. It's got to be, or smaller. There are other office warehouses right there, but, contemplating much smaller type of buildings. And I just feel like that monolithic type of building is just not what I would want, basically what in this pretty close to the center of my city. Anyway, that's why, even though I'll make the comment only because it is legislative, not so much administrative. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner McConkey and then Commissioner Ryan.
So tonight we're really looking at whether or not it's in the city's best interest to rezone, right? I mean, all the details in the building and everything aside, we're just simply looking at whether or not it's a good idea and would serve the community best to rezone this to office warehouse. Since the last meeting, when this was forwarded to tonight, I've spent a lot of time thinking about in fact, there's been comments that have been made, this is where people are coming into the city from the north. And so, of course, it's an exciting time for us to be considering what do we want to welcome people into the city, and what feel and what opportunity do we want visitors, us as a community, what do we want to see every day? What do we feel good about? What's gonna really drive that, help drive that Saratoga feel? Also, considering best case and worst case scenarios, if this gets rezoned to office warehouse, then in my mind, what we're saying is would be okay with the worst case scenario of whatever gets put there. It's to me, it's difficult to make a definite decision with you guys have spent how many months on this project and how many tens of thousands of dollars so far on everything. You've stewed over this, dreamt about it and everything, and we get a few minutes, a few hours, if you will, to prepare for a meeting and try to make a considerable judgment, something that's going to have a bigger impact than some of the other rezones on the inner parts of the city that some of us don't ever see because we just don't drive over there, or at least rarely. And so this, again, is, a tremendous amount of consideration. And to me, looking at it also from an economic perspective, we want to set the city up for success in the long term over the next 50, 75 years. What is this rezone going to bring, and what's the economic value? What's the visual appeal? All these things. This is all going through my mind. And is this really, truly, even in the worst case scenario, is this going to make a great decision and be better than what we've got now? I really don't disagree with some of what's been said. There are some concerns for access to the property. I mean, if we don't rezone, what are we going to get? Is it going to sit there for the next 30, 40 years with nothing? Are we going to get no economic value out of it? Is it just going to be a natural, landscape of who knows whatever? We simply don't know. Thus, doing something with it could potentially be better than doing nothing. There's some concern about noise ordinance of having office warehouse there. I think that's certainly a legitimate concern. I personally I'm not a know-it-all with retaining walls, and we're not making a decision on retaining wall. We're just looking at rezone tonight. A 30-foot retaining wall, I'm not a fan, because we are in a seismic zone and we can't get away from that. And we can engineer and plan for, but the taller the retaining wall is, the more risk there is, of course. The last thing that goes through my mind is, job creation. What kind of job creation? If we take the worst case scenario, we're going to have, 20, 50 people in there. And so we've created 50 jobs for this huge warehouse. Best case scenario, are we going to overrun the transportation infrastructure, the access in and out? Are we going to create a congestion point, some difficulties? Also, job creation, you got to consider the demographics. Where are we going to, the type of jobs that this is going to bring in? We do have, a number of townhomes and apartments and so forth. So the bottom line for me, and I know I'm talking kind of going on and on here, this is all, it's just been mulling around in my head. With just a very limited amount of data that we have, study and so forth, that we have to consider in making a decision like this, definitely is in the best interest in my mind. The key interest is what's going to be the greatest economic value and visual appeal for the city. Those are the two biggies, I think, that are pretty common to all of us. Before I came tonight, I was pretty much opposed. I will say that I'm not as opposed, considering all things, listening to some of the the argument, if you will, of what we're looking at, and I don't disagree with that. And that's something that's been on my mind in looking at this as well. Certainly have zero interest in a plain building. I drove on the way home tonight, drove by that tilt up in, I don't know if it's Bluffdale or Lehigh or what, as you get closer, maybe it's before you pull into Bluffdale, and it's got some great architectural features on that. Doesn't necessarily look like a tilt up. I think there's a lot of things that could be done to enhance that and create a great feel to the city. However, again, in my mind, we're looking at just the zone change. And once the zone is changed, then are we going to be good with the worst case scenario? And that makes it difficult for me to feel like changing the zone would be a great idea. That said, one other thing, the only other thought of my mind is, and I'm not suggesting anything, but as I'm thinking about all this, what kind of buildings would be great there? And fancy office building or whatever. There's not a lot that we can put there. And I think we recognize that. But I think maybe I'm just voicing my thoughts out loud so I can get them out there. But what you want to respond to that?
First of all, I love your.
Come up to Mike.
I think all your concerns are perfectly valid. I'd love to address as many as I can that are top of mind. The first thing is you mentioned lowest common denominator, basically, of if you grant the OW zone to the whole thing, what are we at risk for? And I couldn't agree more with that statement. And that's why with the rezone, we're proposing a development agreement that coincides with the rezone. And with that development agreement, we're willing to strike basically any objectionable use from the OW zone, as long as we can get office and warehouse. That's all we want to do. With that, we're willing to include, any number of items that improve the aesthetic. We're very sensitive to the fact that this really is the gateway to Saratoga Springs. And we can see how sitting in your chair, you're like, oh, you're just putting up a big ugly rectangle right at the, first impression to our city, nobody wants that. And so we understand that. We're sensitive to that. That's why we propose a development agreement. We'd love to do something, on that front retaining wall, put a water feature in, maybe a small park, some nice signage, welcome to Saratoga Springs sign. I mean, we're open to any ideas. We're willing to get creative on how to address that concern. So that's kind of point number one, to address the lowest common denominator. Idea is we're absolutely willing to restrict that and strike out those uses that would be objectionable, so that you just don't have that concern. Secondarily, in terms of the economics, and along the same lines, lowest common denominator, what we see for this is about 150 jobs, and those jobs are in the $70,000 to $100,000 a year range. Yes, you're going to have some warehouse workers that are closer, probably to the $60,000 or $70,000 range, but there's research and development tenants. There are some office components to this. Machine operators inside the building, things like that are higher paying, more skilled type labor. And so we see this as great job creation for the city, very compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And that's back to an earlier comment about where, Commissioner Kilgore, what you said, where are these buildings usually placed? They're usually placed close to labor and close to access. And that's what brings in the right tenants for these projects. That's kind of my job, is to get them leased up and get them sold and all that kind of thing. So this location, that's why I mentioned earlier, great tenants are chomping at the bit to be here, because they look at the demographics of Saratoga Springs. They see a labor force that's perfect for what they want to put in the building. And they see a location that's perfect and an opportunity to showcase their brand, to have a Tesla logo on that retaining wall. So when you drive into town, you can see that. And that's good for the tenant. It's good for the city. And so we really have to have that zone change to achieve that. We understand the size of the building is a concern. As I mentioned earlier, it creates efficiencies that attract these tenants, and it allows us to mitigate some of the noise and other concerns. And that's why we're asking for it. But I know I didn't get to all your concerns, but those are just kind of things that were top of mind.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, it's, as you're talking, really, there's two things that come to mind. Number one is, how are we going to impact Harvest Hills there? And whatever impact that we have on them, to me, has got to be either neutral or positive. There can be no negative impacts there, or it wouldn't be worth the change. The other is by reassigning the RC zone to office warehouse, we're losing revenue potential. And so how is this, if we were to recommend an approval on this, how is this going to offset any realistic potential? If no one will ever put regional commercial, if no one puts any kind of retail or any revenue generating, business in that zone because of the location, I recognize that, but how is the rezone going to offset that loss of just the cash flow revenue?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. I think it's a matter of control. You mentioned this lowest common denominator concept, and I love it, because I'd be more worried about the lowest common denominator as it exists now. If we leave it RC up front and OW out back, the lowest common denominator is potentially a warehouse user coming up and perching buildings up high that do impact the neighborhood much worse than ours would. And I think of the reality of the RC is it just sits. And while certainly I can't argue that a warehouse building provides more revenue to a city than thriving retail, I just don't see retail ever thriving at this location. And I think our experience in developing it over the past 10 months has led us to that conclusion. And so doing the rezone tied to a development agreement allows the city to control that lowest common denominator. It allows them to dictate, what is this going to look like? What are the uses that are going to go here? Leave it as is. And I think the basement is a lot worse than it would be if we did the rezone.
One more comment, you typically do see, especially in the product that we're trying to bring, it's a higher paying salary, more secure job versus a retail component.
Yeah, restaurants, convenience stores, that kind of thing.
Yeah. David, do you have any thoughts?
We've had a lot of thoughts.
Looking at it from, based on.
A lot of things, I look at here. Yeah. Access is really an issue. If there's one truck access for that property, not controlled by a light, semis don't move fast. There's going to be a lot of accidents here, I think. We can't get the access right now to the north. Doesn't mean in 5 years it won't happen. Perhaps now is not the time to develop this property. I think certainly, lighted access at Hardman Way with Lehigh certainly really opens up this property for development. And again, maybe now's not the time. A few years down the road, maybe it's the time. Lowest common denominator, talk about development agreement, which is required with all rezones. Obviously, the uses they want, that's what you have to address. Do you want 300,000 square feet of office warehouse, light industrial? Is that really the intent of what you want on this piece of property? Certainly, it has its challenges. Today talking at the variance hearing, the hearings examiner talked about, it's my job to grant the smallest variance possible so you can develop the property. Those other, things haven't been exhausted yet. He talks about the building size you could actually build a footprint. We haven't seen any evidence of that. Smaller variances to our code could increase that. We just haven't seen anything like that. And that's more down the road with the variance issue. But, bottom line is you have to address is what do you want at this location? Is this something you want at this location? Certainly it's a great product. As we said today in the hearings examiner, we just don't think this is the best location. There's other locations that say this would be great that we look at, flat ground. We wouldn't have any issues. Applicant never, inquired, hey, where would you rather see this? If you don't like us, right from the start, we were of the opinion this is not the location for this from day one, really. And so, but it was never a discussion of, okay, if you don't like it, where would you like to see us put it? They have their heart set here for whatever their reason is, great, that's their job. But, bottom line, what do you want here? Is this what you want here? Because if it does go here, and assuming the council will then approve it, it's there for 100 years.
Right. And currently access is a huge concern.
Access I see it. And
because they're so limited on the access that they have access to.
Yeah, and I don't want to get in an argument, he said, she said, but I spoke personally with Rob Davis, the Alpine School District Superintendent. He didn't think this was a great idea. Next to a school.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I
we
think
do have an access agreement that they're, and we've consulted with UDOT, they're traffic experts and access. And so I don't know that it's responsible to make a comment like there's going to be a lot of accidents here without substantiating that one.
And I understand, again, at least from my perspective, we're looking at worst case scenarios again. I mean, if you look at from one extreme to the other, you take, one extreme is very little traffic because of the nature of the tenants going in there, and take it to the other extreme and you get Amazon shipping going in there. You got the constant flow. And so looking at again with the zone change, we really don't know what we're getting. We're just simply looking at the zone change and being, are we happy with, and do we feel like it's acceptable with a worst case scenario? At least in my mind, but that's all of my.
Okay, we have Commissioner Ryan and then Commissioner Barton.
I appreciate the discussion so far. I'll try to keep comments and questions. A little brief on my end, because I think we've touched upon a lot of them, but I feel like I have sufficient one of the questions I asked was the owner to the north and plans. And I think Director Stroud's comment was well said, is it's very hard for us to gaze into the crystal ball, any one of us, right? And determine exactly what intentions or plans may be, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But I think that as much as we can ascertain that, it looks like you've had some of those meetings and they're pretty set for the time being, which is disconcerting, but understandable. And I think that plays into overall this question that we're talking about in terms of traffic operations. I work in South Jordan. I drive this road every day. I watch how fast people come down Redwood Road over that hill. I may or may not be one of them from time to time, but it is concerning to me. As far as the school plans itself, do you know, is it supposed to be an elementary school? A middle school, junior high that would be going into there. So do we have and again, I don't think I saw this in the packet or anything, but what that layout of that school may look like in terms of.
I'll respond on this. They have one identical footprint. They have one identical footprint over in it's Alpine, where the middle school is, the front is it'll face west. The entrance traffic will come in through the neighborhood. And then the reason for the access agreement, so all exit traffic comes out and does not flow back into the neighborhood to keep congestion down, to keep, a lot of traffic away from those residents in the residential road.
So sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So is the idea being that the exit from that facility would be this shared point to the south of your facility?
Correct. And so our hope is for when they do develop, we will submit the study to UDOT. And then what we will hope is that it warrants a light at that point. And then we'll move forward, because Saratoga Springs and UDOT do have a corridor agreement to place a light right there. The reason being that it can't be placed just with our development is because there's no east side access road like there was for Hardman, right? Hardman comes up through, and that with this development and everything, that would have granted one. So with the school trips, with the trips that we would generate, which would not be a lot for our office warehouse, we would hope that UDOT would warrant that to be an acceptable place for a light.
My general sentiment is along those same lines. Like, I can't imagine at some point that if that school is built and that is the shared exit point, that the cries that would go out on the community Facebook page and otherwise wouldn't soon help prompt traffic study or otherwise a light there.
Whether it's rezoned or not, we deal with the same issue of having. So our discussions with UDOT has been this: we've presented them that we cannot have access on the north side. So they've issued us a single temporary access, which is this middle.
That's the squirrely road in the middle.
But it's not going, it's going to go from the northwest to the southeast of that little portion. So it's going to be kind of a straight in. It's not going to be the S curve. That'll be temporary until we have 2 lighted intersections or 2 full intersections that are working. And then that gets eliminated. And that's how they've granted us. So we use a lot of the center access for cars from the facility, and then the larger fully developed road with the school traffic and larger truck traffic.
Gazing into that crystal ball again, which we're trying so hard to see into, I think we're thinking a little bit. I would love the insight, because we have, you said you built across the nation. Is that correct?
Yes.
So typical hours of operation. So I think we're kind of thinking a 9 to 5 here, but I think it's both a pro and a con, and I would love some insight. So a pro meaning that maybe we take some of this truck traffic away from the busiest times on the road, right? And there's trucks coming in and out of there. The con to that is that the neighborhood backs up to that. There's potential for air brake discharge, backing up, buzzers, all of those kind of things that may come into play at odd hours of the evening if there's cycling in and out of this logistics. That typical of these sites, or are they usually a 9 to 5 type of operation?
Yeah, so I'll preface this with, the building is speculative. We don't know what tenant is going to come in here,
Mhm.
can't substantiate that.
Yeah, so I'm just looking for like a typical, what you've seen because of this experience you've built across the nation.
So the peak hours of that 7 a.m. school traffic do not typically overlap. These guys are in and out all day long, more or less. To say whether they'd be 24-hour or not, that's, I mean, something we'd be happy to address in our development agreement.
Yeah, we sometimes encounter tenants who require 24/7 access. It's not enough of a percentage of tenants that if the city said we need to restrict it to reasonable hours, that we wouldn't find that objectionable. Sure, we'd love to have 24/7, but I don't think for this site that's actually highest and best use, really. So we'd be fine with a restriction.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I know that's very hard to gaze into that. I just wanted some insight from your experiences. The other thing that I think is, and we don't have the answer to this, and it's really hard to say, and I appreciate Commissioner Kilgore's comment when he said, this is our State Street. But it made me cringe when he said that, because when I drive State Street in Orem, I hate it. And if that's what the alternate is to this building, I don't want it. I want this building. To be honest with you, because I think it can look aesthetically way more pleasing than a bunch of, dumpy buildings. And sorry, Orem, I hope they aren't listening to the YouTube feed tonight. But that's what I think. And so I think, well, that's the ultimate question. What is the alternative? And I think we really, really have to ask ourselves. That's a tough question, but I think it merits asking it. Because are we comfortable if this is our State Street to have it look like State Street in Orem and Provo, or let's go drive State Street in any of the cities in Salt Lake County? I hate it. I don't want my city to look like State Street. So I just want to throw that out there for consideration from the Planning Commission, because in my mind, if we aren't thinking strategically around that, then we do end up with a State Street. And maybe that's not the best thing. And look what we've done already. I mean, we took one of our greatest intersections and we threw a Taco Bell and a Wendy's on the corner. So I think we can think a little bit differently about that. To that point, as applicants, are you open to design change if we do make a change? I mean, because you do have sort of this large monolithic building, right? So are there ways for you to start thinking outside of the box to where you maintain the functionality in terms of the spacing on the inside and the interior movement and the logistics coming in and out of that, but you aesthetically make some changes? Because if I were to, my last comment is, if I were to drive down Redwood and see this big gray wall, I don't like that. Like, that's just not.
Blank canvas.
It is a blank canvas. And I understand that, and I realize this is even farther down the road for you, but in my mind, I would encourage us, if we do make this change as a give back to, I know you guys have come a long ways, but can we think even more radical about how we can make this look different on the outside, but still get the functionality on the inside, if that makes sense?
Absolutely.
If I didn't say yes to that, I'd be talking out of both sides of my mouth, because my argument for the rezone is it's giving the city control via a development agreement over what this turns out to be. And if you don't do the rezone, whoever develops this according to the current zones doesn't have to have a development agreement. They just have to meet code. And that can be a lot of different things. And so that's why I'm saying it's advantageous to you to do the rezone, work with us, of an extremely reputable, experienced development team who's willing to take guidance on aesthetics. And, obviously there's limits. We can't say, yeah, you have carte blanche to do whatever you want, but we want it to look pleasing as well. Happy to work with you, maybe terrace that front retaining wall somewhat, add vegetation, add signage, do things to make it look, the way Commissioner Kilgore is envisioning, like the way you want your Main Street to look. Definitely.
Come up to the mic so they.
Looked at kind of the uses, potential uses and who would be interested in, what we could do with this property. It ended up being designed as long, skinny buildings or lots of buildings. And we weren't willing to go there. That's not the type of tenant that we cater to. That's not, the type of development that we want to put our name on or get excited about. We want a nice warehouse, but we don't want the neighbors mad at us because it's blocking their view. We don't want lots of little, storage units. And that's what it was starting to look like as we were trying to work within the parameters of the current zoning, was long, skinny buildings, way up high, storage units, and in the front, strip mall. and, said, should we abandon this now? You asked a question of a previous applicant. Is this a make or break? Are these two lots? If we don't grant this variance, is this make or break? And for sure this is. We've gone far enough down the path and enough directions that we don't feel like it's in the neighborhood's interest and our interest. We're done. We're ready to just kind of say, well, better luck to the next person to work within these parameters and find something. So that someone may be able to do that. What they could do that would work within the parameters, given kind of the sense and the comments that I'm hearing, probably would not be a good showpiece for Saratoga City. And that's how we felt. Maybe we're missing something. Just to respond to Dave's comments, we've been looking for over 3 years. We've been in business for over 20 in retail. We've moved around lots of office warehouse. We've built our own office warehouse spaces. And there's high demand for this now, and it's very difficult to find. Currently in Saratoga, I'm only aware of 2 places that have office warehouse, and this is one of them, and it's up high on the back of a property with limited access. If a result of this was, hey, we're going to rezone some other flatter spaces, that are further out in the city and they happen to be for sale, like, let us know, please. In every meeting with the city, in fact, it was some of the city representatives and council members and economic developer that actually told us, hey, I'm aware of a tenant who wants 4 acres. You guys have 17. Would you be interested in, and connected us with some of those tenants? We feel like we've been very well supported, but there's just not a lot available. If there was more available, if we didn't feel like, this was a great site, because, why are we married to this site? Because of the access, because of where it is, because of the proximity to I-15, because of the future Mountain View corridor, because it's consistent with the office warehouses just across the street, because we think we can make this a showpiece. That's something that these types of tenants really want. They want to be in a really nice space that has beautiful views out over Timpanogos, that is, has quick access to downtown, but also the trucks can come in and get out without driving through the center of the city. And so that's how we've ended up where we are. And it is kind of a make or break at this point. Without the rezone, I don't know how we continue with office warehouse, let alone the regional commercial, which requires the access. Thank you.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just wrap up, and I appreciate the time that's been allotted to me. I will say this is probably to the chagrin of Commissioner Barton, and I know certainly to the city who's expressed their recommendation, but I think this actually fits with what's happening in the area, what we've previously approved in the area, and what is transitioned into communities around the area as well. I feel like it aesthetically matches what's happening in these areas, but it's not an easy thing, and I want to recognize the city and the recommendation, and also the applicant for taking things as far and trying to work together. I know that this is a big one, and it's an interesting discussion this evening. So I appreciate the willingness to have that discussion, and I'll end it there.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Barton.
I feel like everybody's kind of on a lot of my questions and concerns. Number one, I don't think this is the time to do it on this property right here. I would like to see another, I don't know if you'd call it a survey or whatever. I think the neighbors are very, very unaware of the size of the building, even though it may have been shown to them and the square footage was told to them. They have no idea really the size of the building. So I 100% would not be okay with this at all until we get better feedback from the neighbors. I know you're saying that their biggest concern was the view and the noise. But again, I feel like they have zero idea of the actual size of the building, zero idea. And so that's a big concern for me. And when Commissioner Kilgore had talked about State Street, I don't think of it as that at all. I think it is a gateway to our city. This is not what I want to see at the gateway of our city, some big, huge, massive, big, huge, long building. Again, it's not. I love Saratoga. I've been here longer than most of the buildings have been here. And I want the gateway, I guess is the best way I can say it, to our city, because that is a gateway to our city, to be more pleasing. And that kind of building for me is not what I want to see right there. And the safety concern, I don't know why that 100% is not the biggest thing here, why we're saying, hey, this is not okay here. I drive that road every single day, and 100% there, sadly, it will probably, and of course, no one can say that, but I cannot see some pretty scary things happening right there on that road with semis going in and out and that kind of thing. Again, I drive it every single day. And it's, people do not go slow right through there at all. Like, it's not, what is it, 55? That it's supposed to be 55. There's no way. I mean, it's at least, right? If that light is green off 2100 North, like going straight through there, they are going faster than that. So number one, the safety is a huge deal to me. So right now, again, I would say with just that, this is not the time to do it again. On number two, just gateway to our city. This type of building is not what I want to see right there. And number three, the neighbors have no idea what's going in right there. No idea. I mean, anyway, those are just my concerns. Future, yeah, sure, we can maybe look at something like this, but for right now, I don't feel like this is definitely not the time without that access and without, I mean, you can only do so much. I feel like you could use that phrase, putting lipstick on a pig, right? With the building this size and with the layout and stuff like that and the front, you can only do so much. And that's not what I want to see as we come into Saratoga Springs. So just my concerns and thoughts, because it's legislative and I can't.
Thank you, Commissioner Barton. We'll do Commissioner Wagstaff and then Commissioner Ryan. Looks like you had a comment.
Just really quick, I live on Redwood Road on the west side, and my driveway obviously doesn't have a light. It's my driveway. And I turn left on Redwood Road every day, and it's sketchy in a car. And from the safety standpoint, I could not, like, if I have my trailer on, I always just go right. And then I go all the way around the block, because Redwood Road is the only road we have, and it's ridiculously busy. So I think I would have different feelings on it. I don't know that I would love it, but I know I would have different feelings if there was a light there. If Hardman's would let you put in a light, that's up to them, I guess, but I don't know why Hardman wouldn't put a light there. And maybe once the school's there, you guys could circle back to the project. But safety wise, that road's way too fast for no intersection.
Commissioner Ryan.
So sorry, I said I was done, but again, the State Street and Gateway comments just really piqued my interest, because if we're thinking this is the gateway to our city right now, well, the gateway to our city right now is going to have a tool rental shop, storage units, a car repair shop, and Lord knows what else would come in with this. So I think we have to be reasonable and understand what the reality is right now with the gateway of our city as it currently stands. And is this an improvement upon this, or do we open the door to additional? And it's subjective, and I understand that, but understanding what was been approved outside of any of us that sit here currently, and what we have all approved while sitting here, at least while I've sat here, this is the area that I think this fits. And so I just want us to understand the picture of what's taking place here. And again, we've used the term lowest common denominator. And I guess that's a question of what's the lowest common denominator between regional commercial and office warehouse, and which one is better? And that's a good question to ask. I don't have the answer. That's the question that I'm asking.
To that point, refer to the use table. I mean, the current zoning allows for automobile repair shop, self-service car wash, convenience store, fast food, dry cleaners, shooting ranges, kennels, laundromats.
Are you referring to the office warehouse?
No,
So-
the RC.
RC.
Yeah.
Doesn't say, because the development agreement that's in place now does restrict office warehouse uses. It eliminates car uses, repair shops. It also limits the hours of deliveries, prohibited from 10 PM to 6 AM.
So that's why we're proposing to change it to that. So you have more control over those uses. Because to your point, I think the lowest common denominator now is much worse.
Commissioner Barton, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I just don't think we should keep adding things just to make sure we're not getting. You just don't keep adding things just because it's already there. I don't know that. Yeah, I just don't think you just keep adding more office warehouse just because it's already there. Yeah, I mean, there's a point where we can say, hey, enough is enough. So.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, I guess maybe I didn't speak the way maybe I intended. So when I say that it's the heart, I don't necessarily mean that it should be, that it is downtown. And unfortunately, I mean, yeah, I would like the gateway to our city to be something that's attractive, but in reality, most gateways to cities aren't. There's no big gate saying, come in, welcome. There might be a sign, but usually it is warehouses, usually, or farms, or light industrial. I mean, I lived in Europe for 4 years, and it's always that, and then it's the downtown that's really nice, but that's because that's where all the, the pedestrian activity had always been. And so I understand that gateways don't always look that way, to your comment. But at the same time, if we think about it 20 years from now, the gateway is really going to be more like where Mountain View Corridor is going to be. And of course, they're going to be at the edges. And it's just that Saratoga Springs is a weird layout. It's just long and skinny. Yeah.
It's different than it's with most cities.
It-
So we have
it-
to-
it is.
we have to- And we all are, we're aware of that.
Right.
That's why it's hard to say that we have like an actual downtown or an actual whatever, because we're literally one straight line.
And we don't have a downtown, because
Right,
because
we
we
don't,
never
because
had.
of the way we're laid out,
Well,
right?
and also just because of history.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we never had we never had a cowboy town,
Yeah.
where people were all pedestrians and riding horses. And so we don't have that kind of a place. But at the same time, we do have our river to the west. We have our lake to the west. And so I like to preserve more of that kind of feel and that kind of appropriate commercial activity that someday may be able to capitalize on those assets, those resources that we have, while the big freeway is going to be to the east of us. And so I could see that being the appropriate place for something exactly like, I mean, the product is great. It's just in the wrong place and maybe, like you said, the wrong time.
Yeah.
And that's my issue. And then on top of all that, of course, there's the safety and there's the access. And I don't know, it just seems like there's just too many. I mean, yeah, just as many as there are the lowest common denominator, there's also what's the opposite of that? The highest common numerator? I don't know. It's just, it's either way, it's an extreme. And so, but what do we have right now? And what can we see in 20 years based on some of the plans that we have? And that is that the freeway is going to go to the east. And that's probably where a lot of these kinds of buildings are going to be. And that's going to be kind of the gateway. Whereas, yeah, this part seems like it's north of the center of our town, but in the long run, this is going to be part of the downtown.
Big part of it. It's
And
not
you're
going to be
right.
just the edge of town.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right about State Street. It is not a European town. I know that. And it's never going to be Disneyland, but I don't know. I still feel that if there's more green space and we could see the lake, and well, I mean, not that this property is going to obstruct that, but it's just that I just feel like more I don't know what you call it, where between buildings, there's a space that it just might be something that we can turn into, something nicer than maybe some of the other cities already are. But we won't be able to do that if it's this monolithic building. That's all my comment is.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore and Commissioner Barton. So I'm going to wrap us up here. I just want to remind the commissioners that we are making a recommendation to the city council. They're not obligated to follow any recommendation that we make. And with that, I'm going to open us for a motion.
I'll move to recommend denial to the city council, the request of Arco Design Build to amend the general plan land use map from RC to OW and rezone from RC to OW, the subject property generally at 2500 North Ritter Road, but the findings contained in section G of the staff report.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a second?
Wait, what was the motion? That we approve or?
No,
Deny.
denying it, yeah. Right, is that what I said in there? Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you moved to deny.
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
Right.
All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Barton to deny, or motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a
Recommend denial, yeah.
second?
Ken made a good point.
Recommend, yeah.
Recommend denial.
Did I say recommend in there? I think I did.
We're assuming too much power, getting crazy.
Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Barton, a second from Commissioner Kilgore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So I think we have 5 yays and 1 nay, correct? Commissioner Ryan, would you like to explain why you?
I think I've stated all the reasons. And again, why not think boldly with the city right here? This is a bold piece. And I think we can think boldly, and I think we can get all the workarounds that we're concerned about will come in time. So I feel like we could do it.
Okay.
If not now, when?
All right, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Next item is approval of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes and submit any changes that they needed to with a city recorder? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes at this time.
There is one thing, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I gotta get.
Commissioner McClunky.
I gotta get my notes here. Just wondering if clarification needed to be added on lines 125 through 127. Clearly identifying that the area recommended to remain as open space. What do they want to do with that property? Aligns with the begins along the north-south line that aligns with the west property line of the upper portion. I don't know if that makes sense.
Which line is it? Which?
Well, there's no map on this one, but in the last meeting, the motion was made that the shape of the property, of the county property.
What line in the minutes was it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. 125 to 127.
So you're wanting to know if we need to clarify?
Correct. Because it just says, I'm getting it here. We have with an added condition that the west side, as indicated in the discussion, remains open space. And the property that runs along the river west of the RC park. Didn't know if we needed to include in the report where that north-south line was.
That's where I actually took the cursor on the screen and drew it. The county's in the process now of actually defining that further.
Okay,
As far as.
that was my question, is where you drew the cursor, we needed to clarify and add that in the minutes.
It was in the area where their concept plan, I believe, shows trailhead. I think is what they're, but that's where it was.
Just remember, there's this edge of their property line,
Yeah.
just ran straight down south
We
through
didn't
there.
want to have any kind of legal on it, so it's kind of just, this is where it's
Yeah.
going to be
Do we need to add any verbiage, or is it clear enough?
clear enough. We know. And it's gonna be their proposal anyway, and they're willing to do it, so we'll see what they.
Fair
come up
enough. That's all.
It was your motion.
I thought I was clear on my motion, but I read this. And I'm like, yeah, that.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the planning commission meeting minutes from October 28th, 2021.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore and a second from Commissioner Barton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, commission comments. Anybody want to make comments this evening?
I do. Maybe all of us.
I'm just.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Yeah,
Just
no,
joking.
it's already 9:05. No, I'm just looking at the design standards for slopes and they're really aggressive. And I've looked at them before, but as we build out, we're going to be seeing more and more of these harder pieces. The reason why they're developing that property now is because it's hard to develop, right? And we're going to see more and more of these with Mount Saratoga and everything that's once Mountain View corridor goes in, everything along that mountain. Like 6 feet of cut is not very much at all. Like I'm building a house on 1/4 of an acre in Eagle Mountain, and we have 6 feet of cut for my 1/4 acre lot. And so for a property that size to try and regulate them to 6 feet of cut is really tough. And then the same thing with the retaining walls, only like they can have staged retaining walls, but then they can only have 2 or 3 and they have to be 6 feet. And so retaining something like that is tough too. So I don't know what Wildflower is going to run into with their hillside ordinances, but I just think that's really aggressive to only allow 6 feet.
Yeah, Wildflower does have its own standards in their community plan. But yeah, the hillside ordinance, it's a new ordinance. We haven't implemented it much, but it's been. Got to turn my microphone.
Oh, sorry.
I did spend a lot of time and working with some engineering firms to draft up that language. Certainly, is it set in stone? Most likely not, but we have yet to really implement it to see how effective it is.
Does it apply to single family homes too? Because like all those homes up Taos Ridge, they have way more than 6 feet, but the hillside ordinance might not have been in at that point.
Yeah, back when Talos came in, there was the hillside ordinance we have now was not the one that was.
Because as it reads now, they wouldn't have been able to build that subdivision.
Typically not if it doesn't meet what today's code is.
Okay, I'm just the way I'm reading it, all of our hillsides are not developable right now.
Hillsides can be developed. There are some obviously restrictions to that. And that was really the intent of the hillside change was, okay, let's preserve these hillsides as for the sensitive areas, preserve views for people, that sort of thing, looking up anyway, was one of the thoughts on that. But certainly this particular property here, certainly does have its challenges. But, you know, in the terms of variance, all the other remedies haven't been exhausted. They're just coming in to say, this is the only thing we can build here, and it's not. Those just haven't been pursued yet.
And I know they might not have exhausted them, but I'm still looking at their slope here. And for them, they would have to have 10 of those 6 foot retaining walls throughout their property. And it just wouldn't work because the limitations, like they would have to break up that so much that the way that the hillside ordinances are now, where they can only have 6 feet if they have more than 2, they'd have to have like 2 and then a building and then 2 and then a building and 2 and a building to get 6, because they have 60 feet of drop on their project. What's that, Shelley? Or step to building, yeah. But at the same time,
Which an
it
office
still comes
warehouse
to this
building
6
would be
feet. that-
challenging.
It says you can only change it by 6 feet. So.
And certainly you are going to come across properties, you know, take a property that has, you know, basically a mountainside on it. Yeah, you may just have to have the fact you can't fully develop that property because there are certain restrictions.
Does Edge have a development agreement too that locks them into being able to build on that mountain, on Mount Saratoga?
Yeah, Mount Saratoga has its own community plan, its own development agreement. Yeah.
So really, it's just going to affect people that are building above the temple, and then anybody who tries to build above Stillwater or Grandview. Those are the subdivisions that are going to be locked.
Yeah, those are all coming.
A lot of the areas, yeah.
Yeah.
Ken had some comments.
I think the biggest issue, you bring up that the 6 foot walls are aggressive for our hillside ordinance. I think what I think of as being aggressive is a 32-foot wall, retaining wall. That to me is way extreme on the other side. And so to say that we have to grant this, or they have to have this, or they can't do anything, I think this, as was pointed out, is just simply not correct. There could be many other types of development scenarios with smaller buildings. You know, a 6 foot retaining wall for a 3,000 square foot single family residence is one thing, but a 300,000 square foot building, you know, again, is that the appropriate development for this site? Maybe they can still get 300,000 square feet broken up in smaller buildings that don't require a 32-foot retaining wall. You know, I don't know. I just think there are many other scenarios that could work on this property, and we shouldn't think that it's all or nothing.
Well, the applicant did say those aren't the kinds of tenants we work with. So it's almost like they painted themselves into a box based on their regular business practice, which is fine. But at the same time, they have to realize that we can't just bend just because that's not who their tenants happen to be, you know, or the people that they're used to working with.
Well, and there's no guarantee who their tenants are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
That makes
Would Tesla be great? Certainly. That's up and coming. It's the big thing. No guarantee they'll go there.
I wish I made that much money working in a warehouse. Maybe I'd do that instead.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah, according to Doug Meldrum, our economic development director, your average warehouse worker is probably in the $15 to $20 range.
Like 38,000 last.
Yeah, it is. That's, I have kids who work in warehouses and that's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. It's like 20
Certainly you'll
bucks,
have
18 bucks.
have a foreman, a supervisor, whatever.
Yeah, they're gonna
Certainly,
make more for sure.
they're probably more of the, what do you call it, white collar range, if you want to use that term. But certainly the majority of them would be warehouse type.
I still don't think that's fair though. How much does the clerk at the tool rental shop make or the guy that will man in the storage shed? Same thing. So that's not, it's a he said, she said on those type of arguments.
Well, and that's a good argument, really, because I mean, really, we're trying to look in the future. We're
Yeah.
trying to look at if we pass up an opportunity like this, which in all honesty, I mean, developers are going to paint the best picture they can, but that may not be what comes in. And so, I mean, how many times have cities been disappointed and sometimes excessively disappointed to find out that what was approved was because of this great painted picture, but what actually came in was the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. And so it really didn't provide what was hoped. But, you know, we don't know what the future has to hold. We don't know.
And that
exactly
holds true across all the zones, regardless.
Through all the zones.
You went to go buy a Monet and you got some that I painted. So
Sell for millions.
So we're gonna run into this same variance when the school builds too.
school is somewhat different,
But there's-
controlled by the state. There's only a few things that we can
Yeah,
regulate.
they just do, they don't even do building permits through you, right?
Yeah, we can, we can't regulate landscaping, fencing, building aesthetics.
Oh, is that how it
Hillside
is? Okay.
ordinances.
And some of that may be tied in, it'd be a legal question that legal would have to research, but that they do have much more latitude when it comes into doing their sites.
So we can build on our hills as long as it's a school.
That's what we're at. Well, and I doubt the school is going to
Public,
be
put the kids on there.
300,000 square feet.
Do you have some actual feedback from the school district on this?
No,
Because they
maybe
were
things
saying like
change, but-
100%, this is awesome.
I mean, I met with Rob Davis. I met him. We had a thing down, we meet with the school board quarterly. We had our last one down at the police building, whenever it was a couple of months ago. And so I asked him face to face, and he didn't come out and flat out say absolutely not. But kind of beating around the bush that he didn't think that that was the best use of that and being next to a school.
So with this.
100%. I know these
changed
people at
since
the
then?
district very well,
Certainly.
and I can't see them 100% for
Yeah,
it.
sir, could he have changed? Certainly. But I'm just going from what I was told last.
Okay.
Which office warehouse in some cases could be a great
Yeah,
thing.
depending a little bit,
Again,
yeah.
the thing is what, in the zone change, you just simply don't know what you're.
There's a
Yeah,
need,
there are.
there's a need for it. I mean, obviously, there's office warehouse zone there right now. Council
Yeah,
approved that.
it's right across the street.
So
You know,
so some
All-
office
all the way
warehouse was
up there, but-
contemplated there because the zone's in place now. Obviously, what could go there with the current zone and what they're proposing are two vastly different impacts. Building, mass sizing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we're not saying no to office warehouse. We're just saying just no to that big thing that they wanted to build. Now, I have another comment. So a couple times with one of the other applicants about the 9,000 square or the minimum, the
Lot
R110. Yeah. So your comment about we need more, houses, the more lots, the better. We shouldn't turn away any lots because there are people who want to come in here and can't afford it. So I agree, but we have zones, residential zones with
That
higher,
can be that.
right? So
yeah.
it was just that they just wanted to put more onto a zone that
Yeah.
they asked for the zone change.
Right.
They got the zone change and now they want to just pack more. Because I was wondering, okay, do we need to have a bigger zone? But we do. We have R1, what is it, R1? No, well, we have like R2, 14, or we have more dense. Yeah. So I was wondering, do we need to revisit the 10,000 square foot or do we adequately cover that? They just happen to be in the wrong zone.
I think we're fine.
I think
The general plan had it as medium density, the comment I made. General plan's a guide. Just because it says medium density does not mean the council has to approve medium density there.
Right.
There's of course Prop 6 issues. And if the whole issue is, well, the impact on Marie Way, certainly if they went to a higher density, that adds much more impact on Marie Way as far as traffic goes. And so,
yeah,
I just don't think.
But there's no issue with their code. With their zoning. It was just a
I mean,
mismatch.
they got the zone change. They increased their density, like I said, from approximately 15, what they could build in the ag zone, because you could do single family in the ag zone, from 15 units to potentially 60 or so, whatever it may be, fourfold increase.
Right.
So they got a great advantage of what, of course, they probably wouldn't buy it if it was ag zone from AST, but the point is, they got a zone change to increase their density over the current density, which is a substantial benefit. Now, I talk about, and the code talks about the need for increased amenities, open space, because, okay, if you're going to smaller lots, you're increasing the density. Great, you get a density increase, but we want more in return. And the code points to, like I said, to increased open space, increased amenities, which they're falling short as it is.
Doesn't have either one, yeah.
I have one more. I'm sorry.
That's
One
okay.
last comment.
This went way over my 1
Last
minute.
comment. Okay. And I'm hesitant to say this because I do land development as well. But how often do we visit that pay in lieu of?
How often do we
Visit the amount?
yearly? We look at it yearly.
No, that makes me feel better. Just like land prices are going up so fast that it makes sense for them to not do open space and pay the fee.
That's a good point.
But if we're doing it every year, then I feel better.
It's
about it.
right now, I think the last figure we had was about 166,000 per equivalent acre. And then 2,000, and we've discussed this, yes, the 2,000 per amenity point probably needs to be adjusted as well.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, director's report.
Can I
Can I
ask
just
one
add a quick,
question?
and I have a quick comment as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I know it's late, but this has been stewing in my mind. We talk a lot about what we want to welcome us when we drive into Saratoga Springs and the visitors and so forth. What are we looking for? I mean, if we're not
Not a water tank that
rezoning-
says welcome to Lehigh on it. That's for dang sure. But it's already there and I guess I'd have to get a
Yeah.
tank to take it out now.
So what are we looking for? And what are we what do you feel our community would appreciate? And I mean, and looking at the long term, as we look at, of course, Mountain View corridor and everything, are we looking for office buildings? Are we looking for shopping centers? Are we looking for a certain look? What are we looking for?
I don't see any use on that side that I'd feel comfortable with without them getting light in first.
Agreed.
So when they talked regional commercial and they said we could do this, we could do that, any of those uses I wouldn't feel comfortable with.
If there's not a light, no matter who's
I
going
don't
in and
care if they're
out, it's never
semis
gonna
or
work.
cars.
It's never
I
gonna
take
work.
my life in my hands every time I turn on my driveway.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah. So let's say they put a light in there.
then that's a
What
completely
are we,
different story.
what are we feeling like the city, the community would want?
Here's the thing, I don't feel like the community, it's hard to say what would the community want because they don't live up there and they don't really care. As long as it's not in their neighborhood, not in their backyard. And so that's where I run into a hard part with that area is that most of Saratoga is not in that area. So like, yeah, let's put it there. Then it's not by my house or it's not in this area. It's not in this area. So that's what's really hard with that area is that it's not by most of Saratoga right now. And so everybody's like, yeah, put it there. We don't care, right? And so it's really hard. What would the community want? I don't think they care in that area because it's not by them.
Well, what would that portion of the community want?
Well, way less than we already have right there. But I get the access with 2100 North and and Redwood Road on I-15, so we get that. And so we have a lot of that, but definitely not a big, huge 300,000 square foot built like that. That's like, when you look at the footprint of that, it's like, holy cow, like who wouldn't want that, right? All I'm thinking of is when you drive on Mountain View corridor, and I know it's not gonna be like this because we have homes, but all I can see is this big, huge industrial part of Mountain View corridor. Once you start going a little bit farther south, north and then west, right? It's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna look just like that. And that's 100% what I don't want. But it's hard to say when it's zoned like that, it's hard to say, okay, what do we want there? Right? And we're already getting Lehigh stuff. I don't know. It's very hard. And again, I'm biased because I get to see this every single day and a lot of our residents don't. And so I'm probably not the right person to ask.
I would have preferred a business park because then there's a lot more landscaping. the
Yeah, like
buildings-
you said, a lot more open space, a lot more, yeah.
Yeah, and the buildings are usually prettier because there's,
That's true.
you
Yeah.
know, but again, that's not what it's zoned for.
Right.
business
And so
park.
that's where it gets hard.
Yeah.
So-
So it'd have to be a rezone.
Commissioner Ryan, you want to say something else?
So I'm gonna switch gears. I would say, what do we want? Like, I would think for me, like, I just want us to think strategically about where we are doing these things. Because the number one thing about growth in Utah that I observe elsewhere is you know what I'm saying? And that, like, I want to build a community. Like, I want to build I know it's all coming, but like a Main Street where we're having a parade and like my kids are going, because that's where I grew up. I mean, I'm totally biased because I grew up in a one street or one stoplight town in the mountains of Colorado, and you had a Main Street and you would go to Main Street for community events and you would do all these things. I can't wait for that day for the city here. And I hope we get it. I think we will. And then as we build to that, I think we have to think strategically about where did some of these things go and how do we do things differently? And just because it is this big monolith of the building doesn't mean that, I mean, the question today wasn't about that design of that building. The question today was about changing the zoning to get to that building and then get to that day where you do have that influence over what that building actually, like the form that building actually takes and the design standards around that building. That's another question. But my comments are either near or there. I kicked it to death. I've only had like 2 nay votes, by the way, and this is my second one. I'm sorry that I had to miss the joint meeting. I understand it was a very beneficial meeting. It was around a lot of this discussion this evening as well. I did call the chair afterwards and felt like he briefed me very well. So I just want to say thanks to the chair for doing that as well. And thanks for the city for all the work that the city continues to do around all these issues.
I was going to ask Ken about this thing about a city center. We're redoing the general plan. And I know that you have been talking to SLR about having something, correct? Specifically a Main Street for a parade.
Right. Just for a parade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one of the reasons to have it.
Yes. So yeah, we're working with SLR. We're trying to meet with them next month. We've already talked to them a little bit, but we've identified that property that they own, Pioneer Crossing, where it meets Foothill, and that triangular piece that's currently vacant. They had talked to us earlier about wanting to do most of it in single family residential and a little bit of neighborhood commercial and a few other things. And we said, whoa, you know, that's not our vision. So we're trying to get them on board with this general plan update process. And also have them amend their district area plan. So I think they kind of caught our vision for creating a downtown in that area so that it would be kind of a mixed use center that would have some high density residential, a lot of retail, a mix of different types of uses in that area, but that we could create more of a central downtown area. I wish we could do even more and move our municipal center in that area. But it sounds like the balls are rolling quickly into putting it down by the lake where the police station is. But whatever we can do to create gathering spots and a central area, that's what we're going to try to plan for that. So with the general plan process starting, we've already got Commissioner McConkey and Cunningham to join us on our steering committee. All of you, of course, will be invited to participate as we have some of our planning sessions as we go through that. But there will be a focus on downtown. I think Gateway can be another good concept that we should be discussing. The marina or the lake shore areas is another important topic for us to address. So these things are pertinent to now and will be coming forward. There will be opportunities for you to participate.
How do we get more involved with the general plan?
Well, we will let you know when we have, in January is when we're going to have some public participation opportunities there. Like I mentioned, we do have 2 commissioners right now that will be part of our steering committee. And you as planning commission have oversight just because of your role over this type of planning. And so we will look for your input through the process and as it comes forward to you. But we will keep you informed as to what the events are and the opportunities for involvement.
Thanks.
Can I just, sorry. I just want to give a big shout and big thank you to the staff and you guys for when it came to this entire thing, honestly, like such good feedback and concern. Where not that you haven't supported us up in the north type of thing, but I feel like this was like 100%. You guys are like, wait, this is probably not something you want to see there. So I really appreciate that since that's my neck of the woods. And it just was such great feedback with our, with our meeting and stuff like that about why or why not? Like, why would we want this or why wouldn't we want this in that part of our city? And so I really appreciate you guys' feedback and looking out for kind of, the entire city type of thing. So thank you for doing that for us.
We appreciate that. Thank you. And just say, staff's not opposed to that use, we just don't think it's the best location.
I agree, right? Yeah.
So we're going to move on to director's report, and nobody's overruling me now.
You've heard enough of me tonight. Thanks.
So our next,
Next meeting, we're going to try and have some training. We're going to do it here now. Instead of, we thought about trying to do an online for you at home. We're shooting now, and Fred, correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to do the training at the meeting.
Yeah, that's kind of the plan. So there was a statute that was passed last year that mandates training for planning commissioners. And so it's actually 4 hours a year. So, but one of the hours is that it has to be general land use training. And then another of the hour, if you attend 12 meetings during a year, then you qualify for one of the hours of the training. And so that just means 2 additional hours. And Dave and I are going to talk about some topics. If you have topics that you are interested in having presentations about or learning about, if you could let Dave know, and then we can try to identify training opportunities or develop training on those topics. So that's kind of what our plan is right now.
Okay.
So, and some of you, if you attended the APA conference and things like that, you probably have already qualified for your 4 hours for the year.
Yeah, I went for both. Me and Commissioner Anderson went, and it was great. And I did attend more than 4 hours of stuff.
Yeah.
One of them was on community gathering places.
And so if you, and there are other opportunities to qualify too, and we can get those to you. But yeah, so our plan is next time to watch, basically it's called, I think it's duties. I can't remember what it's called, but it's about planning commissioners and the duties and general LUDMA stuff.
Yeah, it's probably what
the
you've seen
exact same
before.
video.
You know, we've had the league Meg come down and give you training in person. She, due to her scheduling and whatnot, I mean, that's her role with the league is to provide training, but she's pointed to the online videos as well. Probably the ones we've seen before, but again, it has to be done yearly now.
Okay.
December
Yes, only
9.
one meeting.
December 9.
Any need to go into a closed session this evening?
No.
Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting until December 9th.
Good timing. Just note.